episode of the PGN podcast that has no name because I don't know.
What? Were you too much of a coward to go with PGNterview?
I wrote PGNterview on here.
You did write PGNterview, but you didn't. You don't want to say it out loud, which is like
because
the
it sounds
true.
stupid.
It does sound stupid, but we had literal minutes to think about this name.
Anyway, we're here with our two guests for this time with Wyldfire and I don't know if you want to go by Binkobon or Chemo. I probably should have asked that first.
You just call me Kim. It's all good.
If I were smart, I would have asked for that first.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, you can call me Kim. But yeah, I do go by Binkobon on like Twitch and stuff like that. And, like my social media and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. There any you want to introduce yourselves for our probably 0 viewers?
Sure. Is it live right now? It says it's still up.
It's live.
There we
right
go.
now.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Kim, you can go
took its
first.
time.
Yeah. So I am Kim. I've been the PGN's president for I believe 2.5 semesters or something like that. Honestly, don't remember. Actually, no, I don't think 2.5 makes any sense at all. So maybe 3 semesters I was president for PGN. This was around, let me see, 2017, I believe. Man, I don't actually remember. I graduated in 2019. Yeah, so I would say it's from 2016 to late 2017 was when I was president. I picked PGN up from the ground from where Matt Gitlin left PGN. It was definitely a different landscape by the time that I had PGN in my hands, and I had to basically build it back up from ground zero. And Ryan was kind of the first generation of PGN. And like if he was the first generation, I would say I would be like 3rd generation.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah, so I'm Ryan, aka Wyldfire. Wyldfire NY on Twitch, Wyldfire NYC on Twitter. You guys can follow me. I don't really post that much, but I was one of the founding members of PGN, but I wasn't the president at the time. So actually the original founding fathers of PGN were 2 goons called named I don't know, I know like Doxerino, but you could just it's public. So are Alan Huang and I don't remember his tag, but Alan Huang and Kevin Chung. Kevin Chung might be a more familiar name to a lot of people because he ran the Poly SciSec lab, ISIS or whatever it was called, for a few years. Even as like a freshman, he was one of the lead members of that lab. So he had quite a bit of pedigree. And those 2 were the founding members of PGN, and I was kind of just like a treasurer secretary kind of thing in my first semester when I came in. It was founded when I believe they were sophomores or something like that. But very quickly, they did not really realize how much work actually goes into running and managing a club / starting a new club. So after a single semester, or really halfway through my first semester, I became the president of PGN in an unofficial capacity. And then once they allowed us to actually do the role changes, I was the president from, let's see, what was that, 2013, 2012? It was like 2013. And then my tenure lasted until 2015 or 16, and then that's when I had to go on a medical leave, and then I came back in official capacity as like a consultant / advisor for the club, and that's when I worked with Kim.
Okay, so this is definitely it's definitely going further back than I thought it would be going.
Yeah.
I didn't actually expect it to.
You kind of have the 2, like, so if I'm the 1st generation and Kim's the 3rd generation, you guys would pretty much be like the 4th / 5th, because it seems to be kind of a tradition where the in-between generations kind of put the club in stasis / the club slowly declines, and then you have the odd number generations come and
Yeah.
build it
Yeah,
back up.
you're putting a lot of heat on the regulars right now, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked with him, right? And he's very
Yeah.
aware of. I mean, it's not necessarily his fault either, right? It's just also clubs are often at the mercy of like their
people.
membership. Exactly. Like clubs are
Yeah,
not
yeah,
often;
yeah.
they just are. And the fact of the matter is, Carol inherited the club with like just about every single officer graduating, which also meant that a lot of the whatever like clout or like fan favoritism or like hold those officers had over the communities to kind of pull them in, left with them, right? Unless there was like an actual succession, which again in college clubs that are not really recognized in a substantial capacity by the university struggle with, right? You're not really going to be able to have a hand-me-down if there just aren't the people there for it, and if the university itself doesn't provide you the resources to keep the club afloat / keep the club on top of things. So, and, it is what it is. I wouldn't say that anybody should like take heat because everyone kind of just did the best they could do with what they inherited. Because again, like
it's a ton of work trying to actually get anything going. So a lot of, I think so after my presidency with PGN, it was actually not Carol that took it over. It was John.
Right, that's right.
And then
Maury.
John had to leave. Yeah, and
Right.
Maury. Yeah, and then he had to leave because I think like medical stuff. And then
Yep.
he actually left NYU, and then he kind of just dropped it onto Carol. So I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
at
true
that-
too. I actually
yeah.
forgot about that.
Yeah, like at that point, they were just trying to keep everything afloat because people were leaving, and people were graduating, all that stuff. Yeah, it was it's a lot of turmoil running a club and trying to keep things going, especially because like when by the time that I handed it to Maury, like we had a ton of things going on at the time that it was really tough to juggle. We had the 9, like the support for the 9 different esports, along with like like regular PGN and events and all that, and again, like you need to keep
Fighting
tabs.
with play.
Yeah, fighting with play. Oh my god. Yeah. I don't know if you guys know about that, but that's a story.
We've heard bits
Sounds like a
here
story
and
for another
there,
time.
Yeah.
but never anything too concrete, I think.
Yeah, it's always just been like random hearsay from regulars and like some small private conversations, but nothing really big.
We try not to mudsling for the most part, but I believe we actually have the entire conversation and all the interactions recorded. So that could be a fun thing in the future once the dust has settled for everyone.
Yo, that sounds hype.
Well, it also seems like I've tried personally reaching out to play as a club nowadays, and it seems like they're basically defunct. Like I've tried multiple times to reach out to like whoever runs the club now, and I've not gotten any word. They haven't had any events so far this semester. They technically don't even have an e-board published.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Pour one out for all the hard
Oh,
work
and Injustice. Sorry.
that my girl Iris Lee put in. Pour one out for Iris Lee, aka
Play
Iris
doesn't
Lee.
deserve it.
Yeah, they didn't deserve this fate.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually on that subject, I do wanna shout her out because PGN wouldn't have become what it was or like grown in the way that it did, nor would I have thought to put it together and like focus more on the esports had it not been for the help of former play president Iris Wing, good friend of mine, big homie, studying to be a veterinarian. I believe she's at the last legs, maybe her last year, and she just has complete like the residency or something. So shout out to you, Iris, if you're out there. Because no, she was like a bit of a mentor for me as well, because I believe she was the year before me, and she was just a pleasure to work with. Because right now, like PGN, like I said, wasn't always an esports focused club. like I said, when Alan Huang and Kevin Chung founded this club, it was just supposed to be like, let's get some fucking free pizza, let's get some video games. We just get people to bring their consoles. We get like a room in Rogers, and we just goon squat it up for a few hours because people are gonna do that shit anyway. But we might as well do it like together, and that was kind of the original vision for PGN. And that was like, those were like simpler times. They were like pretty nice because it was much easier to do stuff then. It was just like, okay, go to OSARC or whatever student resource call, and that'd be like, okay, what's our budget? Okay, well, we're gonna spend it all on pizza. And they're just like, yeah, go for it.
That never changed. That never
Yeah, I mean, that never changed, but for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
Before, that was like the peak. That was like, holy shit, we could get halal food, and it's like, all right, we're in there. So you get like halal patties.
Wait, we can only get
Exactly.
halal food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but at the beginning, it was like the fresh feeling of being able to feel like you're conning the school, be like, wow, we're just gonna play video games together and get food. Quickly became like, wait, we pay fucking how much for this school, and you're giving us how much? It's like,
Yeah.
So but yeah, so what happened was when I took over, basically it was mostly just that they didn't have the time. Like I said, Kevin Chung was running like the SciSec lab, and then Alan Huang is just a transient being.
Yeah.
So they didn't really have like the time, or in certain cases the background to be running a club like that. Whereas prior to this, like in high school, I had done similar things, whether it was running clubs or just like doing any kind of like bureaucratic work, student council stuff, etc., etc. So that set me up to say, okay, well, we need to make this more organized if we don't want our events to just be like hacked together and stuff like that. Plus, it seems like there was a real demand for that kind of community. And then as more and more people would show up to our early events, they would ask, like, you know, do you guys do this game? Do you guys do that game? And, you know, in 2013, that was like when League of Legends was really exploding. You know, that was like season 2 or something like that. So that was like when League of Legends was really becoming like a huge thing, and kind of like when North American esports, because of Riot's work to just like do so much advertising about like esports, was kind of starting to take off. And also how, like, you know, it was becoming more commonplace in the FGC for, you know, sponsors to step in, and you started kind of having that clash. Well, not started, you were well within the middle of that clash between, you know, the classic grassroots of FGC and stuff like that versus like, oh, the esports is like diluting our product. It's like, it's making us, you know, get like soft and shit like that. You know, that was kind of the whole sentiment of like, I guess, the North American esports landscape at the time, right? So that kind of sets the backdrop of why it got into our heads to kind of like, well, what if we tried to make this bigger, right? More and more, like, Riot is putting on these big productions, like more and more people are like trying to like put together like actual LAN parties, like teams are starting to be formed for things like, you know, crew battles were becoming like a big thing again, because for a while, like, you know, nobody gave a shit anymore about like East Coast, West Coast fucking crew battles anymore. It's like, oh great, fucking in Melee, it's like that died with fucking Ken and Chillin' Dude, and then like with fucking Marvel, it's like, well, everyone moved to the goddamn West Coast, so what does that matter? It's like, you know, Chris G's moving over, Justin Wong already moved over, so it's like, well, who's left on the East Coast? You know, eventually we found, you know, guys like Flux, Flocker, all that stuff, but you know, Titans were not in our favor, so nobody gave a shit about East versus West. So then there was not really a whole like esports thing for it. But again, during I would say during that era is when it really started popping off. So I remember going to a Play event. Play was the first one that actually hosted like kind of like I think like a League or Dota get together. I honestly can't remember. Dota fans can be mad at me if it was Dota. Who gives a shit? But I remember going over and being like, wait, this is really cool. Like, everyone just has their laptop set up, and like, you know, they have a room. It's running. That's one way to put it. But people are having fun, right? And so that's when I was like, why can't we do the same? And so, I reached out to Iris, and we talked about stuff, and I saw that Play did lots of, board and card game tabletop stuff as well. And Iris was complaining that it's like, honestly, it takes too much effort to run like the video games portion too, like for all these video games. And that's kind of like the start of our working relationship, where it was like, well, what if PGN became the video games club and Play became the tabletop club, right? Because it makes a lot of sense, because it's inherent polygaming network, right? Where the tech school, it's about a network. It's like, again, just more like about online, offline, just has that whole vibe of digital. Whereas like Play, you think of like physical play, you've got your blind boxes, you've got your drafts, you've got your cubes, etc., etc. And that was kind of the vision that we both had going forth. Not that both clubs couldn't do the other club's forte per se, but it was just more so that who would be more in charge of one thing and where would you direct them, and that made it so much easier at the beginning. But again, as you add more on your plate, more money, more problems, right? Like each community wasn't exactly on board with this whole thing, right? So like I said, this is when League is blowing up, but also when fighting games is at that crossroads where it's like like right now FGC, it's just an esport now, right? It's an esport. But they've also found their comfort zone where you can still have your Yipes, your Tasty Steves, your people just popping up, your Spookies, your Arts just fucking slanging mad shit all across the room and just talking shit and just being themselves and not having to worry about it, right? Instead of like the whole horror story. It's like, well, this Sagat's really stepping up and hitting him with the high kick, and then he comes through, right? Like, that was like the horror story. It's like, I can't believe it, they killed the hype of the FGC. It's like, nah, they're cussing again, they're doing all this stuff, and nobody cares because they realize that's like the marketable product, right? But back then, that was like the fear. Like esports was a boogeyman. Like, they didn't care about the money, everyone was a sellout, right? So when we start trying to put together all these things, and again, this is before Kim's time, this is when I first started trying to put together all the esports stuff, the amount of pushback was honestly insane. Like, you would think that, like, because there's no formally recognized club that can actually do anything and give money to any of these groups, that they would want to get on board with it. But it's like every single group would fight you about, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be a part of it, like, no, you have to provide these things for us. But they wouldn't want to be part of any part of the process where it's like, okay, well, can you sign this thing? Can you click on this one link? Like, literally just click the link and you're done. It's like, no. And it's like, then I can't help you, and you're just fucking it up for everyone else. And that's kind of also the story that continued throughout, both for Play and PGN, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, it was not supposed to be that in the beginning. But when there's a demand, there's a void. Like, it should be there. Like, NYU is honestly such a powerhouse school in terms of talent. Like, there are so many talented players that have come through NYU that just never get a fair shot at competing or get the support that they needed to develop, nor are there are so many talented people in the context of the back end of esports, whether that's event managing, whether that's server setup, whether that's stage teching. Like, there's all kinds of that stuff where these people are passionate about it. Yeah, graphics, exactly. Where they never get like a fair shot at that kind of stuff. Like, so many other schools are like, NYU is honestly so far behind, right? Like, we have this game center and it's like, what the fuck do they teach, or what opportunities do they give everyone? It's great that you hire a bunch of like legendary devs, and then it's like, and then what? Like, what, these kids are not getting.
I'm at a game center.
Yeah, I know.
Center.
But, like, these
as
kids
far
are
as, like,
not getting a. Yeah, I'll let you go on that topic in a bit, but like, as far as that goes, it's like they don't get any hands-on experience, right? It's like, make your own indie game, like, do whatever, like, you get to have these people advisors, but there's so much more to the ecosystem of game design and development, or like esports live shows. Like, there's so much money going into esports, regardless of whether you think it's sustainable or not. The fact of the matter is, there's just a huge bubble of money in esports, and it's like, you can just have a normal salaried job, right, in esports. You can be an accountant for esports. You can be a stage tech for the live shows. You can be, a back-end programmer for some of like the private servers, or just for technical issues like for the stream, right? But none of there was no infrastructure at NYU set up. Like they're so behind every other school. Almost so many other schools have officially recognized programs, right? And like that was the void that we wanted to fill / to grow before all that had happened.
Like the meme of like gamers being the most oppressed population definitely didn't feel like a meme.
Yeah, like for sure. Because like back then it's like we're contending with what? It's like Cheese Club, right? They advertise Cheese Club at Club. We're like, what do you do? It's like we spend all our money on cheese and we eat cheese. I'm like, do you like pair it? Do you like figure out what cheeses go with what foods? Like, nah. It's like, then what the fuck is this? Like, especially when, you know, NYU was trying to be like, well, you know, we want things to be more career oriented. It's like, yeah, there's like $15 million going into this one fucking company that can't even, this run by like some goon from fucking Long Island, and like $15 million coming in from somewhere else, and then Tencent fucking putting $1 billion into Riot, and you're saying that there's not like a career oriented field? Like, where do you think these casters came from? Where do you think that these like stage techs came from? Like, who do you think does like the billing for this stuff? Like, who sets up the shop? Who wrote the shit lead client? You know what I mean? Like, like people had salary jobs for it, and it's gonna look better if they seemed like they were part of the community from the whole time, instead of something where it's like, yeah, I just did a basic CS thing, and then all I got to do was really like get an internship at Chase, and it's like, okay, well, now you're gonna open yourself up to like gatekeeping from the interviewers regarding like your participation in it and stuff like that, especially as more and more colleges have real programs. Like I think back then is like the first time where we saw like Robert Morris University and some other universities that was like, oh, eSports scholarships. I don't know if you guys remember that. Like I don't even know how old. I guess you guys were like in middle school during that time. But like that was something that was like a huge thing where it was like, holy shit, colleges are giving eSports scholarships. And like, you know, the NYU League team was getting invited to PAX, but that's pretty much it. That's just because they were good. Like if they fucking earned it. It wasn't like, oh man, like the Riot's just serving everybody like there's so much provided to us. It's like, no, they had to invite us because we were smashing the shit out of people. Like, of course you're gonna invite us. But yeah, that was kind of the origins. To close off the tangent, the origins was that it wasn't meant to be that, but the void and the emerging culture of esports across North America was something that at least I had the foresight to say, this is very fucking cool. There's money involved, like there's just legitimate money involved. People can get jobs in this shit, so like we can transform this club from just being a bunch of idiots eating pizza and playing video games and watching me play Dark Souls in the corner, to this club could be like competitions, like learning how to run a stream, learning how to set up private servers, learning how to commentate, learning how to like all marketable skills in the industry, and that has cross-pollination in other industries. Like if you can commentate, you can properly give a presentation, you know, in corporate. It's just stuff like that was like, but again, it was just like a slog to get to where we wanted. And then when we were finally making progress, I had to take a medical leave. So that's how my tenure ended as the president, is that I had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and was also just like physically unwell. So I had to actually take a medical leave, and then that's when I had to unfortunately just drop a lot of the stuff on my officers, who I would say were not very prepared, because I was just not really working with a whole lot of officers that were either as passionate or as skilled in terms of having the background to manage a club. Like they were learning slowly as I went through it, but most of the time it was pretty much just one-man armying everything, like doing all the paperwork, going to every single meeting and saying this is how it's supposed to be done. And as you can imagine, for somebody that was like physically and mentally unwell, that can really exacerbate the situation. So that was I think that ended in 2014 is what I would say. 2014 or maybe early 2015, but I believe 2014 is when my tenure as the president ended, and then that's when it was handed off to Matt Gitlin, who did his best to keep it alive. And then fast forward with like a year and a half or something, and then now it's Kim comes in.
Yeah. Oh, did you want me to? Was that a good for me to
I'm
talk about
definitely-
That was a
this
nice. I felt like that was a pretty.
time?
nice
It
segue.
was. I was waiting for Khan to
I mean,
to point me in a direction.
I'm
But I
just
can go
interested in
on.
hearing like your part of the story too.
Mhm.
Because I feel like a lot of the issues are still pretty relevant.
Yeah.
And even when I first like was going through like old YouTube footage, right? I was looking through old PGN footage, seeing if there's anything usable for just for like graphics inspiration. And this was nearly a year ago, but I found that this like old like e-board meeting of just like it's the summer, we need to have a strategy. It was just Wildfire and then like some other people in the background occasionally bring up questions, but it was like almost an hour-long speech. I think it was an hour-long speech effectively.
Yeah, it was like roughly an hour. I definitely went a little longer than I anticipated there. We had a whole setup, but the problem was that people, first of all, people came in late, and that's already a tilter. All right.
Yeah.
Shout out all you new officers out there, all the people thinking about you be officers, all the people thinking be involved. One of the main points of that whole thing that Kong is mentioning is that you got to treat it like it's a job, right? If you want it to be successful, you got to treat it like it's a job.
That's the thing, though. Like, I would say most people that we've worked with didn't treat it like as a job.
Exactly, and that's why I'm putting out
Not
that
the quality,
I'm putting
not
that out right now.
specific, but like the amount of like the people that like my officers during the time that I was president, I would say for the most part, did not treat it like a job, and that's what made things super fucking difficult to get any momentum at all. Because for I would say like the first 2 semesters that I was president for, I think I was president for 3 semesters at
Something
least.
like that.
Now that I think
Yeah.
about it,
It
because
more
I
than
was
two.
I
More
was
than two for
yeah
sure.
I was secretary before that.
Yeah.
And
For 1 semester, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so it was really hard to do anything because, well, first, when I first became president, and then we had like our first iteration of our e-board, the vice president, like, didn't even come through. Like, he, like, just forgot shit.
Yeah.
Like, to bring, like, important equipment and stuff like that. Like, just really basic stuff that you want your right-hand man, so to speak, to not forget. So, I mean, that was tough, too, was that I quickly realized that I was just kind of on my own. Like similar to Wildfire, like just one-man armying it, but I didn't really know like what direction to take it, because by the time that I got PGN, plopped onto my lap, like it was there was kind of nothing going on. There was like a dead Minecraft server that like we still had it, but like it was I'm pretty sure
you still have it. Like it's
yeah.
It's
Well, I mean,
somewhere in the ether.
occasionally people start playing it like
Yeah.
on it, but then it doesn't really last. But yeah, we had a Minecraft server. We had a website that had a bunch of like really outdated information on it, so I had to remake the website, which was like a fun project for me personally because I was doing web dev at the time. I was learning web dev on my own, so I was fine with that. But yeah, like other than that, it was just I was just maintaining the club in the sense that we would just have bi-weekly meetings where we have like pizza and like oftener food, like lacking in food, and I wasn't really happy with that. But we also had a new influx of students come in. A lot of freshmen at the time came in, so then the landscape of our community also changed a lot. And then for a while, it was just kind of like a casual gaming club where I would occasionally hold like games feature I would feature certain games that are like very like eSportsy. Like I try to do like league, like really simple league tournaments, like like a 1v1 like tournament, and I think I remember that. And some just like some really basic quick like Smash tournaments and stuff like that, and then some Overwatch tournaments, and just basically just trying to touch on all of these different little communities that I feel like people were interested in. But then you know, at the same time, it was really hard to foster these communities and continue to have like a particular, like feature a particular game more than once a semester because people wouldn't really give us continued support. So it's like, even though, you know, we wanted to do more, it wasn't really feasible for us to continue to, you know, give these sub communities, you know, a place to like do their thing. But yeah, about, so like I would say like we had like 2 semesters of that, and then
Yeah, that sounds
Ryan,
about right. Yeah, because
yeah.
I was just gonna cut
But
in.
it was
and say-
good. It was
Yeah.
yeah, it was good times. And like I wasn't necessarily satisfied with the amount of I guess like esports kind of representation. And just I felt like, you know, personally I felt like PGN was didn't really have like a solid identity. It was really tough because we had mostly like our regulars were mostly casual gamers and we'll just kind of be there no matter what. But it, you know, people weren't really active in the community. Like there wouldn't be, like, even though we would have good attendance at events, it wasn't really a community that was I guess like supportive of each other and supportive of the club itself. For example, you know, we had multiple opportunities to like fundraise where all people had to do was like literally sign up, like put in their name and their email. It worked the first time. Like, and that was the first semester that I was president, and we got like $1,000.
Yeah.
1,000 something. Because I think they did 2 waves of it because a lot of people signed up and they were like, okay, we'll have more money. I'm like, sick. So then with that money, you know, dude, oh my god, I had to fight so hard at OSARC to try and convince them that PAX was something that was worthwhile.
Yeah, that was probably the most successful thing.
Yeah, that was
funding slash fundraising.
That was
slash,
that
like,
seems
project.
like, yeah, that even when we were working together, Ryan, like that seemed so far off because people just stopped giving a shit. Like no, people just never really gave a shit. I mean,
yeah.
But I guess like when the community was still fresh at the time, like more people were willing to do that kind of stuff. Also, we had less going on at the time, so it was easier to get everybody to do the thing. Because I remember specifically like starting an event and being like, okay, this event's not going to start until everybody goes on their phone right now and signs up. And I had to like walk around to make sure that everybody like signs up for them. It's like free money, dude. Like I don't like, it really pissed me off, honestly, that I had to do that. But yeah, I mean, anyway, so we went to PAX with that money. I mean, even then it didn't cover that much of our trip there. I think it covered the tickets.
Covered the tickets, and then I think people had to pay for their own transportation, and then
they had to pay for their own. Yeah,
and had enough to like help if necessary, I think is what it was.
Yeah, and it paid for a little bit of the hotel, which was cool. And that was a really cool event. We had how many people? I would say like maybe 15 people come.
It was like 15 to 20. I remember it being close because the problem I have trouble keeping count of how many it was due to the fact that like some people just came of their own volition, but like
some people just definitely tagged along. But it was a fun time because for a lot of us it was the first time going to PAX.
Yeah, and to put that into context, I think that what like the contribution like per person was, I think like around $60, and that means $60 for your entire weekend. Like that was the hotel, your transit, your tickets. So that's pretty good, I would say. You know, you only spend $60 for those. So we were able to, I would say that's why I would say it's one of the most successful fundraising things, because like the only other one that was successful in any like meaningful way was us actually getting funding for private servers.
That was not my time. That was
like way before. That was my first year, and that was one of the things I fought for, saying like, this is how we can host stuff, this is how you can get people who are commuting to be more like get to participate more. And shout out 2020, I fucking saw that shit from fucking 2013. Would be real fucking useful to have online shit now, wouldn't it? But basically that was it was that where they paid for our private servers and then we set them up ourselves. And then they also bought the main eSports figures jackets, which I still have.
Yeah, no, that was super sick. Like we that's kind of what got me really interested in PGN as well, was like seeing like when I was not even in college yet, when I was looking at at Poly, back when it was still Poly. And then I saw like the league, like the PGN, and then I saw like the league stuff, and then I was just like, that's what got me interested in PGN. But then at the time that I arrived, like it was already dead, so it was pretty tragic. Like, I don't know. I think that just like running this club in general was such a like labor of love and passion, because I wanted so badly for this community to exist so that I could be a part of it and like have, you know, be part of a community that's cool and like, you know, has support for games and stuff. But you know, doing all this stuff on my own basically for a long time, that like creating the club and like running the club came at the cost of me actually enjoying the club, which is, I mean, I don't know if you guys deal with that at all, but like that was definitely a thing that like felt pretty bad, and I was a little bit bitter about, especially because even then when I was like trying my best to keep the club alive again, like people just didn't give a shit about maintaining, you know, our funds and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, we went to PAX, and that was actually like the best thing that we were able to do. And then also, so like the landscape of OSARC also kept changing. So like when I was, so the first 2 semesters I was there, and you know, we were doing the you know, the kind of casual stuff with, you know, every once in a while, let's say like every month or so, we'd feature kind of like an esportsy kind of tournament. Oh yeah, and tournaments. I don't think this has changed, but it was really tough doing tournaments because we couldn't buy anything. Like we couldn't give these people like gift cards. We couldn't give them really anything other than food. So then our little loophole for that was that we would go to Target and just buy like a bunch of Pringles and shit like that, like Pringles and just like snacks, and we'd make like little care packages, and that would be like the prize. And like a lot of people, I seen the disdain on people's faces upon receiving their prize.
I just won grand, and I got a pack of fucking Twizzlers, some Milk Duds, and a fucking box.
I tried to make it good. I tried to add it. Yeah.
Went to game 10 reset grand finals, and then I get this shit. I get a fucking box.
The only person that ever seemed happy about the care package was Fakri.
Yeah, Fakri, shout out
Fakri. Yeah, Fakri. I think he was just happy that there was any prize at all, and that made me happy, because like, yeah, you know, it is tough getting prizes. Like, we are just people that want to play games, but we don't have money. So, like, what do you think we are? But yeah.
And actually, to add on to that, just to interject, like, one thing is that I know that you guys are using Matcherino now and stuff like that. Not only, like, that stuff not only didn't exist back then, but then we also had the problem where when we would talk to OSAR, we're like, okay, well, can we charge an entry fee, right? Can we charge like a $5 fee as like quote unquote fundraising, and then like that would be the price. Like, it just goes back to the students, right? It's not like we're like taking that or whatever. We're not even, they're like, no, like, what, why not? Like, why can't we do that? That's like the same as anything. It's just very upfront. We're just fundraising and then using it immediately on the event itself. And like, they would say, no, that's like against the terms, you can't do stuff like that. And like, well, okay, what if we invited people from outside of it, because they were like, oh, they're students, they're already paying for the club. I'm like, yeah, well, fucking money, we get $500 pizza. Like, well, okay, it's like, yeah, I remember that if you look at the club charges in their thing, it's like thousands of dollars. But we're like, fine, what about if we invite people from the outer community, like New York City? Because, you know, what if we were getting New York City FGC people come in, get an entry fee from them, and then we can make a prize pool then? And they're like, well, no, because then you'd have to file it as a fundraiser, and then you can't give that money to people that are not part of the school. I was like, so I can't give money to the people in the school, but then I can't take money from people out of the school if it's also potentially going to go back to the people out of the school. So why would anybody from out of the school donate any money to come in and play? And if they get first place, we tell them to go fuck off. Like, it was just so backwards. And they the problem was that they just seemed to never make any attempt to understand what was happening, or like the logic, or like how it was a community and stuff like that. And so like, that was like the really rough part about, it's like, oh, how do we spend our money? And then one of the ideas that Kim had was like, well, they said we could get speakers and stuff like that. So what if we spend money trying to basically fly in or like train in, bust in some like top players or something, right? And then we have them give like a fucking 10-minute talk about, I don't know, whatever they want to talk about, you know. If I can like Mango to come and talk about beer for 10 minutes and then we post a melee tournament, right? Like we thought it was good. And believe it or not, that was what they were the most receptive to. They're like, right? They're like, oh, like industry leaders? Because obviously, you know, gotta fuzzy the details.
The idea of someone like Mango, friend of players, smoke 2 joints, being
Yep.
considered industry leader is like incredible.
That's exactly it. We'd be like, well, you know, they're like industry leaders, and you know, because at this point, esports had settled, right? When Kim took over, esports had settled into like a real thing. There was an actual industry now, so it's much easier to point to people. Like, it's like, look, this organization, Cloud9, is like got $15 million in Series A and angel investment funding, right? So it's like it's so much easier to point at that and be like, this guy is a representative of this organization, right? And that is why we would like, and he will participate in the community as well. You know, ignoring the part where he will undoubtedly get sloshed and talk a bunch of shit, fuck up all our melee players, and leave. But like basically, like that was the idea that maybe we could do that. But then again, like we got so little funding from OSTAR, because I don't know how much you guys get now. But back then it was like $500 a semester for the entire semester, and then everything else had to be done in a ancillary request. You had to request additional funds / like request like special funds or whatever. And then in order to do that for the event, you had to basically give them the rundown of the event and then have people like sign up for it in advance. I don't know, like with org sync and shit like that. And God knows that NYU students don't want to sign up or don't commit to shit when it comes to like org sync or when it comes to like pre-signing up to stuff. Like for example, I ran a 1v1 tournament for League of Legends that had 140 RSVPs, 140 coming RSVPs, and even more maybes. And the day of, like 30 people showed up, right? It's just like, don't worry. Like, it was helpful in the sense that I was able to get more money for the event, but then it wasn't helpful when that event ends and I have to submit the breakdown and then 30 people showed up, right? Like, that looks so bad for the club, and people don't realize like how being a flake hurts the club so much. Like, it really hurts the club so much. Like, the situation might be different now, but back then I would have definitely preferred that people would just say, no, we're not coming, and then I would get less money, so we didn't look like huge assholes that got way too much money for something that we couldn't promise and live up to. Because conversely, we had like an 80-man ARM tournament where 80 people actually showed up, and we had like $50 to spend on the whole thing. So it was like, it's like you're constantly working in that kind of ebb and flow of like funding / not funding, requesting special funding, at least back then. And you never know what you're gonna get because you can't rely on anyone, including your own members, right? And so like that's the second thing I'll shout out to everybody, is that if you're a member, please just participate. Like, just do the bare minimum. That's it. Nobody's asking you. You don't have to be an officer. You can volunteer when you feel like it, and you can help out if and when you feel like it, and that's already helpful. Just don't sabotage the effort, right? Don't sabotage the effort. If you can just, like, there were so, like Kim said, when PGN kind of went back to his roots under her tenure, there were so many people that would just show up and hang out. Like, you know, I shouted even a few of them. I still remember, like, shout out my man Stefan. Like, we would be running games that my man don't give a shit about.
Dude,
like,
we were
this
just
guy
in the back playing Paragon.
only plays Paragon in the corner. That's it. He plays Paragon, but he would without fail show up to every single one if he RSVP'd that he was coming. That's it. Like, shout out my man Barry. I know Barry came to PGN events when he first came in a lot, like before like he joined the Smash Ultimate community. Like, I know that like Barry was a staple too, and he had a few friends there too that would come through. Like, shout out to them, you know. Like, these are people that understood, like, just show up, dude. And like, you're already gonna you're gonna do that shit anyway. Like, at home, you might as well show up and hang out, do your shit at the school, like, and hang out. Like, obviously if you're commuting, it's tougher. We're not gonna ask people to stay out extra late or whatever if you're commuting, but the whole point is just don't sabotage the event. Because like, those events, other ones I was talking about, were on a weekend. Like there were ones where it was like, this is like a prime time thing, dog. Like we're running like, you know, big tournament that has actual prizes. Yeah, both the ARAM and the 1v1 tournament had actual prizes too. You know, I shelled out for that shit. You got skins, you got
Oh
art.
yeah, I did want to mention that that a lot of, because we weren't able to get prizes like that were not food. The A lot of the prizes that we ended up going with were like prizes that are straight out of just our pockets. Like I remember for the Overwatch one, I forgot why this happened, but somehow I think we were like missing a prize for somebody, and then Stanley, who's OG legend. I don't know if you guys know him, probably not. But he's been a part of PGN for a long time, like since like Ryan's like first rodeo.
Yeah.
PGN all the way. He was also on the e-board while I was president for those 2 semesters, and he graduated. But he just bought, like, he just went on the Overwatch website and just bought a figurine for this dude. But yeah, no, like we tried our fucking best with that stuff. Oh, and I also wanted to mention, like speaking of like notable members. So I mean, I touched on this earlier about how just the culture of PGN's community was just pretty. I mean, I would say just kind of awkward. I think that you could say that about just like the overall population of like Tandem kids in general. It was
I think it's kind of true.
You would say that STEM kids.
you would say
Yeah.
yeah. So
That
it was
main
just, it was
hobby
pretty
is
awkward. Like,
video games are
so
awesome.
I'm really thankful for the people that always came through. Like when I was president, and we were running, you know, our bi-weeklies, our attendance actually rocketed, you know, a lot, like compared to the era right before that. Like I think we would get like, I don't know, maybe like 10 people
Yeah,
before.
so the figures would be like, so at the end of my time when I was like probably struggling the most, we would probably be around 30 to 40.
Mhm.
And then after that, if I were to go by the org sync numbers, right, which again is not really great, you plus or minus like 5 to 10 for those, but yeah, it would be about 10, right? And it would sometimes be single digits. So it went from 30 to 40 average to roughly single digits for a while.
Mhm.
And then when Kim came back, I believe like
It went
your
back to,
first,
like, 30.
yeah, it was back to like 30, 40 average, which was pretty
But then
great.
our first event that I had, I think we had like 60 people or like something like that. And like the org scene thing, obviously we like the room that we held it in
Yeah, it
couldn't
was
hold 60
cramped
people.
ass magnet
Yeah,
room.
but it's just like anybody that like even shows their face around the room, like come here, like scan your ID, like all right, you know, you can do it. You
my
can go.
Shout
Like out of here.
Shout out to the magnet janitor, the biggest fucking
Oh
homie
my
of all
God.
time. He would offer to scan in even though it wouldn't work because he's not a student. But he would just be a homie.
Wow.
He would let us overstay. Like we were supposed to be out by like 10 or whatever, and he'd be like, I mean, I gotta clean this whole place anyway, and I'm the person who's supposed to kick people out, so you just stay. I'll leave this room for last or whatever.
Yeah.
And my man would just go around the whole place first just to let us stay for like an extra hour and a half. Biggest fucking homie. Shout out to that guy.
And PGN folk, you know, the community wasn't necessarily clean or whatever. Like they, you know, we
Got
definitely
nasty.
left a mess a lot of times. I mean, obviously, like the board members would have to clean it, but like no, he didn't. Yeah, he was a big homie. Yeah. Anyway, so you know, like I said, community pretty awkward. Like not a lot of talking, just a lot of kind of sitting around with our like laptops and consoles that people brought in. Like DS and stuff like that. I still appreciate those people. Don't get me wrong, but it was just hard to build a community when people aren't really willing to like get to know each other and talk and stuff like that. But one person, John, he was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. In the first semester that I was president, and yeah, because he was a freshman at the time. And he was just so cute. He'd come up to me all on his own and be like, you know, like how can I help? You know, this is cool. And you just talk to me. And you know that's how he became, you know, vice president and then president later on, just because he just genuinely wanted to help, and which was just so rare. But yeah, no, he was definitely a big part of the a big part of PGN, a big part of the community, just by the sheer fact that he showed his interest, and you know, like that even that was like really hard to find. Even in a room full of like, you know, with like 40 people in it, like nobody wanted to actually do anything and offer themselves up to
pretty much
help.
Like if you asked people to do something, they would do it, right? Say, hey, can you help us clean up? Like, sure, like did nobody ever have a problem to do that, right? Like, because I would say for the most part, our community was made of pretty good people. Like, you know, they might be awkward or they might not be awkward. They just love games. They just want to hang out, and so they're of course always up to help break down or whatever. But when you get to like the nuts and bolts of it, you know, like I said, like that meeting you talked about, so that meeting on YouTube that you talked about, the people sitting in there, those are all eBoard members. Those were all members of people who were supposed to be community leaders, who were supposed to be running their own esport or what have you. And so a big part of that thing is trying to get everybody on the same page. That's what that meeting was about. Like, that meeting was to start off the semester and say, this is our goal. This is what we've been struggling with for a long time. And this is how you have to go about doing it, because you cannot phone it in. You cannot just say like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do it, or I'm just going to play the game, and then that should be enough. Like, that's not enough. And that is why it went on for so long, is because I really needed to hammer home that it's like, this is not me just yelling at all of you. This is me telling you that this is what you're in for. If you're not in for this, it's time to leave. Like, it's time for you to leave this room, because we can't rely on you then. And we would rather just do it on our own, because when you rely on someone for stuff like this and then they fail to come through with the time that you need them, it shoots the club in the foot way more than if that person had never been involved.
So that meeting, it was also because Ray and I knew that would be our last rodeo. Like, we know
yeah,
that
that's
it was
true.
gonna be our last ditch effort. It was pretty desperate, I would
That's
say.
true. Yeah, so I guess for context there, when Kim first became president, I was not involved at the time. Like, I was not involved. I was still on medical leave. I was still like, I came to like hang out because I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's alive again, right? And also I had some old friends that were still around. But like, I was not involved until about a year into your tenure, I would say. That's when I came on in like an official capacity and really helped out. And then that's when we really tried to realize, you know, the vision that we had initially had. Because like Kim said, that's what she thought it was going to be when she came in. Like, the vestiges of what I had started were what she had seen on the Facebook groups and stuff, because that was the last time they had real activity. Like, the Polygaming Network Facebook group, when I was around, had like 400 or 500 members, and, you know, people talking about all different kinds of games and stuff like that. And then, you know, eventually faded into obscurity. But from what was left over, you know, that's what got her interested, and that's why, again, we came back to the drawing board. And to set up what later guests on this podcast will likely talk about, is their attempts to create an esports club. Because the whole time in between my leaving and my coming back, various other esports communities, such as, let's say, Smash 4 Melee and other communities like that, made their own attempts to foster and create an esports club, but not necessarily an overarching one, which was, again, narrowing the scope, which in the long run hurt them, right? Because NYU already didn't want to support them. They're sure as hell not going to set the precedent where they're going to let Melee have its own club, or let Smash 4 have its own club, right? And then now it's like, well, now you got to give League one, now you got to give Street Fighter one, now you got to give Counter-Strike one, and now it's like, now they suddenly have like 15 different clubs that they never wanted to support in the first place, despite what they say. And like, that's kind of why, again, we said PGN was a good launching point for that. PGN was a good launching point because, again, we are already involved with games. We have the history of having that stuff. Like, again, with Iris, we have the history of taking control of that stuff and bringing people together via that stuff. But, you know, it never got fully realized. And that meeting was Kim and I saying, let's give it one real good try, because Kim knew what it was like to be a one-man army and doing everything on her own. I knew what it was like to be a one-man army and do everything on my own. So now you got two people that can do that. We were like, okay, that's already twice, like that, like the combined power of that boosted, that's like 4 times as good as we had it in the beginning, because it's like, I don't just have to do this shit on my own. I have somebody else I could rely on to do that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like she said, Maury, John, who eventually became one of the presidents, 4th generation president, was also on board then. And John does good work. So we got John now. And so it was just like something where it felt like the pieces could be coming together. And that actual meeting of everyone there was actually a really significant time in just the gaming community for New York University, whether people realize it or not, because that was the first real time most, if not all, of the people in charge of each individual esport came together under one roof, right? Under one roof to hash it out. Like, we had, I think it was like Bill from League there, we had Owen from Melee, we had Paul from Smash 4, we had Peter from Counter-Strike.
Who's that?
What?
Who's that?
Oh yeah, who? Yeah, sorry. I mean, yeah. Sorry. I just made something up, I think. But we had Peter of Counter-Strike. We had, I think at the time, Overwatch didn't have somebody that was like in charge, so it was kind of just like a placeholder Overwatch. Like, I think that like John/Carol was like, yeah, like it's cool. I get help with Overwatch or something like that, because like, you know, it wasn't like a big thing yet for the school. We had Kyle for Hearthstone, and we had Gabe for HOTS. We had Josh for Salt Mines, the FGC. Like, you know, just the fact that there's like 9, you know, all these communities in one place actually working together for the first time. That's the very first time I can say that with confidence, that anybody bothered to actually come together and like do that. That's like also why I was like, listen, like this is serious. Like, you all know how many times we failed to get esports to be a recognized thing at NYU. So all of you being here is the first step to us, regardless of NYU, making that dream a reality, because we don't need, like, my whole point there too is we want to create a foundation where we don't need NYU to keep going. Like, if everyone buys into this, it's totally like it's gonna work, because it sets the culture and the precedent for everyone to know that it's like, it's still grassroots, but we're still there. It doesn't matter what happens outside of it. Like, we're all supporting each other. The problem was that just about everyone in that room was set to graduate at the same time. So you're on a ticking time bomb, and either like, because if it was like stacked where you have like a couple people leaving each time, then you still have the majority of people who bought into it able to get new people and help that community that now has lost its head, like, rebuild and say like, yeah, like, follow our example, like we're buying into this thing.
Yeah, so like all of us being able to, you know, you're talking about the significance of that room and just the personnel that we had at that time being super duper stacked. Like, that was honestly a miracle. I mean, as you kind of alluded to, because it's not that these people didn't exist before that, but it's that these people, you know, everybody has an ego. Like, all of these communities, you know, wanted to be their own thing. But so then for the longest time, like, you know, before, because like a lot at that moment, I think most of us were like either juniors or seniors.
Yeah,
like we were on our way out, like, for real. So then a lot of them were on their last legs in terms of just motivation, and just they just kept getting beaten down by NYU because they wanted to do their own stuff. They wanted to, you know, because these communities existed, but they couldn't find support anywhere. Which, you know, this is where kind of play comes into play here, where, you know, a lot of people's first instincts were to go to play because they are like the quote unquote like main campus, like
the all square club. They're
the all square club, yeah, and then like play, not gonna lie, shat the bed like for the longest time, and like didn't give them the support, and then also it hindered PGN's ability to work with these groups as well. So, but yeah, like, that group coming together was also just huge, because, you know, everybody finally was on the same page, because for the longest time, like, even though like when I first started my presidency at PGN, I knew about, you know, Smash wanting to do stuff, I knew about like Melee wanting to do stuff, but then, you know, they at the time didn't want to work with PGN, or like work primarily with PGN, like through PGN, but yeah, it was really, really huge.
I think maybe it's just because the current landscape for esports, especially collegiate esports, has like really shifted. We've been really fortunate where I don't really have to reach out to a whole ton of people to being like, oh, can you run events for whatever? I mean, we recently got people added for Valorant and for puzzle games, just like pretty much them reaching out to me rather than me trying to force someone, you know, to like run events.
Yeah, and that's like really great. That's like kind of one of the things that when I tuned in to like the Tetrio event and stuff like that, when you guys were running the weekend long stuff, like when I found out that, you know, that was Kevin volunteering. I have a funny story about that actually, which I'll tell after, like in a little bit. But that whole thing where he reached out to you and then he wanted to run it and took it upon himself, like be like Kevin, people. Like that's just like really great, because when I heard that, I knew that things would be successful regardless for you guys. Like the fact that you and Moss are both like your roommates and you're the officers and you're both passionate about it is already a good start. Then you have people who are now actually coming to you to volunteer. Like I said, that would have been like unheard of for us back then.
Did you want to tell the funny story about Kevin?
Yeah.
And his...
So funny story about Kevin. I've actually met him in person, and so has Kevin has actually been to our apartment before, and we did not know that. We did not know that this was the same guy, and he did not know that was us. So, and this is actually how Kevin told me this is how he actually got started into Tetris, or like became like a big fan of it. So, the lore here is that at the time, me and Kim were living with NYU Melee legend Hohep, and also just resident NYU troll Hohep. But Hohep, Joe, brought a friend over, right? He was like, it was a friend from Overwatch, he said. So it was a friend from Overwatch, and Kim and I both don't give a shit about Overwatch or whatever, and this guy came to hang out. And then Kim was playing Tetris 99 on the Switch when the guy came over.
Pieces.
Yeah, just...
dropping them pieces. Hard drop all the time.
Yeah. And so she was basically balling out, and, you know, he comes over, and Kevin, sweet kid. He's a sweet kid back then. And he's just like, comes over and he's like, oh cool, like what is that? And then Kim explains Tetris 99, and she like hands him the controller, lets him play a bit, right? And Kevin was definitely not good back then. Okay, I cannot overstate this enough. Kevin's a killer now, but when we saw him at our apartment,
I was like, man, like this kid is sweet, and like, you know, it's kind of cute, like letting him play on my Switch, but like this dude's tanking my win rate. Like
it was tilted. It was straight.
I was kind of mad. I was legit mad.
It was low key mad. Like she would come into the room. I was just playing like fucking League or something in the room. She would come in. She'd be like, "Dude, this guy keeps fucking losing. Like he's like out like 98 like all the time." It was like, I was like, "Oh no, like not like this." And then, so like he keeps playing. You know, he's like into it. He's into it. And he keeps playing, and, you know, night ends or whatever, Kevin and Joe go hang out somewhere else or whatever, and Kim is just super tilted because her win rate tanks, so now she has to play way more Tetris 99, get that win rate back up. And then...
No, dude was on my Switch for like 3 hours.
It was a long
time. Not even kidding. I was like, this kid is still going! Like, he's still losing!
Still the win rate. And so finally, like... that night ends, and then fast forward, right? And, you know, I see this Tetris tournament, you know, Kevin runs the thing. I'm like, that's dope. You know, I reach out. I was like, you know, good shit running the thing. That's super cool. And he's like, hey, thanks. That's awesome. And then Kevin comes into my stream, right? Kevin comes into my stream.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off there. But about a year ago, Joe was like, hey, so, like, you remember that friend that, like, you got mad at? I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, like, he wants to come over and, like, play Tetris with you again because, you know, he actually has been playing Tetris a lot since he came over that time. I was like, fuck your friend, dude. Like, I was still mad.
2 years later, she was still tilted. Like,
yeah.
Are you serious? Like, do we tank my win rate some more?
Yeah. Like, I don't want to talk to him. Like, I don't care. Like, it's too bad.
I didn't know that, actually. That's funny.
No, he told me. Yeah. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was after we stopped living with or not after we stopped.
No, I think that was like at the end of our.
Yeah, at the end. Yeah, that was at the end. And so finally, so I'm streaming, and then he comes into my stream, right? I'm like, yo, what's up? You know, Kame, Kevin, whatever. I don't remember. He had like a different name. He recently changed his Twitch name to reflect his stuff, but It was some weird name, but he's like, oh, that's me. I'm like, oh, dope. And then Hohep comes in. Very rare, super rare for Joe to show his face around anymore, mostly just because he's very busy. But Joe comes into my stream and he goes like, don't you have to go to work, old man? And I'm just like, yo, what's up, Joe? Go fuck yourself. And then Kevin goes, is that Hohep? And I'm like, that's like a red flag. I'm like, the only people who know Stream Police 69 as Hohep are people who know Hohep in real life. So it was like, oh shit, you know Hohep? And then he's like, oh yeah, like, you know, I used to hang out with him all the time. I even went over to his place. And then Joe DMs me. He's like, this is the guy that I brought over. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? This is the guy that you brought over 3 years ago, and Kim got tilted out of her absolute mind as he was playing Tetris. And literally not but 2 nights ago, I watched that guy just absolutely shwork some kids in Tetris. This is the same guy that now knows how to do his DT cannon openings and like counter 4 wides. This is the same guy now that I saw lose at 98th over and over. And Joe's like, yeah, dude, it's the same guy. I was like, holy shit, what a small fucking world. And like, that's what's really cool. And like, that's why, you know, that's kind of, you know, aside from, you know, actually loving fighting games, like being a former fighting games player myself and, you know, checking you guys out again, because, you know, we always have like love in our heart for this, this project that we worked on. But like to have that kind of small world thing happen where it's like, you know, the effects of things that happened that we did, whether or not it was for the club or not, resounding many years later was something that was like pretty surreal. And something funny with that too is that Memento, he's also, you know, one of the guys in the club. You know, I think he played some Melty. I forgot. I think he whooped one of y'all.
Yeah.
Well, he plays a lot of games.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, Memento plays a lot of games. So Memento, actually, I met him through my stream as well because I was streaming a gacha game. And I didn't know Memento was part of NYU at all. It never came up. Memento came in and we were chilling and we were playing this mobile game and, you know, just shooting shit. And then I see him in the PGN chat and I'm like, okay, did this happen? Because I rated you guys once upon a time. And then, you know, I think it was Kong that was like, oh yeah, Memento. I think he's in the chat. I think it's like, hi, it's Memento or whatever. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me, dude. I was like, you're fucking kidding me. And then I reached out to Mentor, like, wait, you're NYU? He's like, yeah, actually, I was the league coach after you. I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why didn't this come up at all? Like, why did this not come up at all that you happen to also be the League of Legends coach, like, after my time there? Like, it's just so strange to have all of these things kind of coalesce into one. But yeah, like that's the kind of feeling that I think is really special about clubs like this. Is like meeting people and having that kind of stuff where, you know, you feel not only your impact, but just you feel a kinship with a lot of people that you might never even met due to the work that y'all put in or just like the participation that you have, you know what I mean? And I think that's like super duper cool. So definitely also, you know, shout out to you guys for keeping it together and like bringing it back and, you know, running your shit the way you want to run it.
Yeah, because it makes her anguish and like all of our you know negative feelings about you know us putting in so much effort earlier on, and then you know it feeling like it wasn't like nothing came of it. It definitely kind of sets those feelings. You know, makes it so that those feelings a little bit more settled, where it's like, you know, it wasn't for nothing. It's definitely, you know, we're glad to have laid the foundation for, you know, future club members to pick it up and then make it their own and then continue, you know, the vision of just having a really successful and, you know, poppin' games community, because that's all we want, right? Like that's all we just want to hang out with with like people that like to play games, that care about games.
Exactly. It's just like to not have that, especially because, you know, in the city, while you might have those, like a lot of them are just more oriented towards a specific thing. You know, you got your NYC LOL, you know, you got your next levels and stuff like that. But
yeah,
in terms of the general stuff, it's like pretty hard to find somewhere you could just like play a bunch of shit with people, you know, or just like hang out playing bullshit with people and like whatever you think of.
I think it's just like a funny way how all this lined up though. Like you know how, do you know about the bi-weeklies that Kong hosted before he became president?
No, I don't think so because I didn't hear about anything until the PGN account magically went active again. Basically.
Okay. So I don't know if he wants to tell this, but like the way it was that I basically brought him into fighting games, right? In during freshman
okay.
year.
He
And then
fucking
last
baited
year,
me.
I baited
He
him with the
fucking
Soul
baited
Calibur
me with
character
Soul
creator.
Calibur 6 character customization. It's like, okay, I'm gonna
He-
try to make something stupid,
He
and I'm gonna
tried
try to make something
Stellar
actual
Venus,
good.
actually.
And I started playing the game.
So we literally just like deathmatch, like we just started playing, and we went through every character on the roster, and it wasn't
Oh my
a complete like demoralizing wash because it was like that was the day when Soul Calibur came out, basically,
Okay.
right? It was both our first times playing, and I was new to Soul Calibur, so I basically like, look, this game, it has an in-game 500-word essay tutorial. Actually, just read that because it has a lot of good information, and then we could play. And we went through every character, and he said it on Gerald, who's like one of the he's probably the easiest character in that game, and probably still is, right?
Yeah, probably. He has like every
And
tool.
then, yeah, and then he got into it, and he also rang me out like a motherfucker half of the time, lol, right? And then what ended up happening was one year later, he was looking into like the old NYU stuff, and he was like, "Holy shit, PGN! There used to be a lot of fighting game events back then." It was like there used to be a community here, and it's gone now. And he just thought, well, I should start it again. And so he just started hosting events, and I would like fucking talk to all my classmates and shit, being like, yo, you play video games? You play any fighting games? Like, we got this thing going on this Friday. Come over, right? And then
Hell
it's
yeah.
like, we got pizza. We got free pizza. Because guess what? We still have a budget of $500.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
which is also suspended right now because COVID.
Yeah, our
COVID.
budget's actually $0. So, Jesus Christ, right? But that's neither here nor there. And it's like this happens because of you guys like keeping those events up back then. Because I think if you didn't hear about like the old FGC history in PGN, I don't know if you would have ever even like bothered.
I probably wouldn't. And actually, I
Yeah.
do have another detail to add to the whole build up of me realizing that I should run locals.
Yeah.
This only happened because I talked to regulars about what the fighting games community used to be like, and he told me to hit up Owen and that he hangs out at the game center a lot.
That's really funny.
So I go there, I talk to him. He's like talking about Guilty Gear or Vampire Savior or something, right? And then I overhear it and it's like, okay, I'll talk a little bit about VSAV because I know through other communities that like there's like hella VSAV players in NYC, and one of them, Diano, I like kinda know. So I talked to him and he talked about like, you know, oh how salt mines used to be a thing, that, you know, he would run something, mostly Marvel Guilty Gear. That was definitely the large impetus for everything. And if that never happened, I don't know if I would have ever really have had the super big motivation to start up locals.
I also think like part of the reason why like the Kame success story happened was because like Kong likes poverty. I also like poverty. There's like a pretty strong emphasis on like playing games that are just not really considered like esports or quote unquote serious, right? Which is like stupid because every game can be taken to a serious level,
Right.
and shouldn't be like looked down upon. But that's how it is that these games aren't seen as the big hotness, right? We're not
Right,
playing. We're not even playing like ARAM, and we're not even playing like 1v1 League. We're playing like Kong's. I think like one of his favorite games is is Sailor Moon S, which is almost sometimes seen as a joke because of that like Core A Salt video. Even though I don't think Core A meant anything like wrong by that. It's just kind of represented weirdly, right?
Here's the thing about that. As much as I guess people in the Sailor Moon S community, myself included, as much as we bring up the video, and I mean Gerald is in the Discord and he does occasionally show up there, but like, you know, we talk every now and then, like this Core A video, it's kind of like shows the wrong impression of the game. But if I had never seen that video and I never saw the way it was presented, I never saw that, hey, a fighting game can exist that pretty much breaks all the normal conventions of a fighting game and still be played and still be hype and be tied to one of my favorite IPs, like, that's like golden. That's like a golden formula for me. And if I never saw that video, I don't think I would have ever gone super into party games. I don't think I would even appreciate 2D games. I would probably have been more of a Tekken player than I am now.
Yeah, he was really like he was really not into 2D fighters for the longest time until he found like Sailor Moon S and then move on to like Third Strike after that. Like we played a few bits of casual Third Strike on fucking, I don't even know if we were running that shit on Fightcade, right?
No, I don't
But
know
it's
what we were
like-
doing, but
Yeah,
it did not feel that great to me at the time.
And then eventually it all led to like Sailor Moon kind of showing him like, oh no, 2D fighters can be really fun. There just has to be something about it. And it's not like he doesn't like Third Strike because he fucking loves Third Strike now. So
It's just,
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
have an appreciation for 2D games at the time.
Yeah, I was like, you're Korean, right? You probably want to play Tekken. Lol, 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 lol. That was unironically like not what I thought, but it was like a joke that I made, and I tried to be like, hey, play 3D fighters because you're Korean. We're like, we might as well start somewhere, right? I don't know what to pick. And before coming to MIU, I was actually like, I was a Smash player, like through and through. I fucking played Project M and Project Plus because the hell was I gonna find fucking fighting game players, right? I wasn't gonna find them in my fucking school in like East Hampton, Massachusetts, also known as buttfuck nowhere. And so, like, the only reason why I actually really like, I've been playing fighting games since like Mugen in like 2009 or some shit, like super casually on the keyboard. But without Kong, I don't think I would have ever actually joined the FGC proper.
Yeah, if I never met Matt, I don't think I would have ever really got into fighting games. At that point, I was like a retired Counter-Strike player. I just got like so fed up of like playing Face It for like 2 years and grinding in high school. I was just so sick of it. And I pretty much retired to like playing Arma and like Red Orchestra again. I was like super casual. I guess playing like milsims and like tactical shooters, but it's like no one's taking these games super seriously.
Yeah.
And it honestly feels like if I didn't start playing fighting games, I would have probably eventually pretty much quit playing video games like in any capacity because I just didn't feel any drive to do anything.
Yeah, and that's like what's crazy, and that's what, you know, is really at the heart of these communities is, again, like the magical moment that you meet somebody that changes your outlook or that just introduces you to a new thing, you know what I mean? And I think that's what's really cool, and that's really what we wanted to foster, like, because that's like the point of esports, right? That's like the actual point. It's not about the glitz and the glamour. Like, competition is part of it, but then what's the point of the competition, right? It's to leave yourself out there, to put yourself out there and get that kind of experience that you can't get anywhere else, right? Like with that game, with the people, with your team, whatever have you. And then if you don't play it seriously, you're a spectator, you root for the team, your friend is on the team, and it just like shows you different thing. Like you said, like it doesn't have to be about everybody trying as hard as possible and everything has to be life or death super serious, but it's about creating a community and showcasing like what can be done so that it gets people interested, right? Like the Core video is something, it might be a misrepresentation, just like the league games and, you know, these weekly, I think it's tonight, right? You guys are running another set of the league games tonight, or is that tomorrow?
I got the schedule wrong when I DM'd it to you. It's
okay.
Yeah, the TFT tournament is tomorrow. It's the whole weekend.
Okay.
And then
damn.
we do have another game of the of their internal league tournament series on Saturday.
Yeah, there you go. And so it's like, it's not like those are going to be representative of like absolute peak play or something that's like so crazy, but what it represents is the community coming together to do something, and that's what's really cool. Like having people participate and like having everybody like, I'd like definitely for League, I think it's really cool that they're finally getting on board as well, in the sense that, like, you know, it's streamed on the Polygaming Network 1 and you have people volunteering, and I imagine, and I see the Discord of like the Overwatch people and the Valorant people. I think that's pretty cool that they're so willing to hop on, because like I said, that would be so unheard of in terms of people actually willing to come together. And like you said, I think that really shows the true shift in culture right now. Like the building blocks of the culture that were laid a long time ago, it's a shift in culture also of the collegiate scene overall, because one of the problems of not having the poverty mentality is that when you think there's a lot of money there for you, everybody wants a slice and everybody wants to be selfish with it because they see how much there is, not thinking about how much you actually have access to. So I do think that approach is really good in the sense that, you know, the focus is always going to be grassroots with this kind of project. And that's kind of what I was emphasizing in that meeting, is that it comes from us. It comes from the people in charge. It doesn't come from NYU. It doesn't come from the sponsors. That's what you work towards to get. That's what you work towards to obtain through your efforts, right? Melee didn't get there by being sponsored by Nintendo. They still, right now, they're still not sure if they want to be because they feel like it's actually hurting them. You know, right now you have stuff where tournaments are being sponsored by Capcom, and that's finally something that has settled into something, okay, that's objectively good because you got your Steves and Yipes now back in the commentator's seat, back repping New York, back talking the shit, you know, stuff like that, instead of, again, your golf commentary that they're so afraid of, you know. But it took a long time, and like I said, I think also with COVID, it just so happens to kind of be the perfect storm where video games happen to be one of the perfect outlets and social outlets for people that are used to being online, because it's interactive, you have agency in them, and you can still socialize and express yourself with it. And that's what's really cool, especially with poverty games, in the sense that party games, there isn't any kind of pretense. It's just you like the game or you do you not, and then it has its own culture because the culture is just made by the people that play it, not by any top players, not by anything like that. Just it's a bullshit game with bullshit players and some bullshit stuff you can do to each other, and then you get tilted and you get mad and you get happy because you hit them with some stupid infinite and you're good to go. Like, you know, that's the fun stuff, and that's the kind of stuff, like you said, that's like inspirational. You're like, wow, that was dumb. I love it, you know. And like, then your friend is like, I love that too.
That's such a poverty game mentality, though. That's like the perfect way to encapsulate it. Is, wow, that was dumb. That was sick.
Exactly.
Like, all of those, just like that hits just right. That's 100%.
But yeah, there's like, if I had to go into like to bring it, you know, bring us back off the tangent and just back into, because I know that like kind of the point of this inaugural one was to get the history. Like basically a quick timeline would just be, there's 5 generations, with you guys being the 5th. First being myself, Alan Huang, Kevin Chung, and then on play side that would be Iris Lee. Second generation is Matt Gitlin, and I don't know who was in charge during that time for play. Third generation would be Kim, and then subsequently me in an advising role 1 year in. And with play, that would be I don't remember that kid's name. It's like
yeah.
I
was gonna say bad words, but it's fine.
I don't remember the kid's name, but the other one was Kea. And then the 4th generation would be Maury and Irregulars Carol. And then the 5th generation would be you two. That's like the quick, low rundown. The eSports focused generations 1, 3, and I would say now 5, to a certain degree. It really is all up to you guys, depending on where you want to take it. And then that also follows when the 1st, 3rd, and 5th generations also experience the most participation, right? Like it seems to be like an odd number thing. It's really more of like, 1st generation, I had to go on medical leave. 3rd generation, like theoretically, John is actually part of that 3rd generation, where, you know, it was actually a pretty smooth transition where we prepped him, we prepped the rest of the officers how to take over, and then John had to go on medical leave. So really, like 2nd and 4th generation were left hung out to dry. I'm not going to speak on their behalf. Carol's still around, so he can speak about his experience for it. But in terms of like Matt Gitlin's, I am not in the business of speaking on other people's behalves or of saying how I think it went for them, because they went through their own set of issues, obviously, which affects everyone in different ways. I just know that during that time, one of the achievements is that in the 2nd generation under Megan's tenure, they were able to get PGN recognized as the official club, because again, like the rules to become an official club were really dumb. That's all I'm gonna say. They're just really dumb. It's like arbitrary rules. When I'm having 100 people show up to my events, as far as I'm concerned, I'm an official club, regardless of whatever the hell paperwork or like weird funding stuff that you want me to do. Like if and like during that time, I ran one of student council's events. They're like, this is the most people we've ever seen show up. I'm like, weird. It's like I know how to run my shit, unlike you. But it's like, whatever. But that's kind of the thing, and that's also kind of the story of all 4 generations, is a constant war between the grassroots movement of the club and the administration of NYU. There is like no love lost between the members, and so some of the people that you might have come on would include like Paul Merritt, Peter Kim, Owen Riley, Justin Cohen, maybe. I don't know if he'd want to, but like these people are all people that have been through the shit in terms of like fighting with the administration and stuff like that, and they know how it is. I
think Paul's story is gonna be pretty
Paul's
long.
Paul's would be a good one, and I would actually love to hear it, because Paul and I have talked about it a bunch, but both of us didn't speak about it at length or in detail because the tilting happened. Like both of us just get really tilted about how like things go and the common experience with the administration. But yeah, like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Did we talk? I know that you just gave the overall rundown. I feel like we didn't go too much into when we actually did the whole like 90s sports thing.
Okay, I mean, I don't know what the time stuff is like for you guys, but would you like us to, we can talk about that too, like a more detailed look at probably the most successful / the most ambitious part of the PGN history. Like, I don't know what part you want to focus on, which is why I keep kind of jumping back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like time constraints, I don't have anything in mind.
I don't know if you ever like made a time slot, but like I'm free for the rest of the night.
Yeah, I'm free for the rest of the night. I technically have a paper due tomorrow, but fuck it, I can do that in like 3 hours, I think.
Let's go, baby. That's a real college experience.
Yeah, I mean, I figured that's something that we should probably talk about because
that's a good idea. Yeah, I just kind of
that's the thing that's giving the current club the momentum that it has, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
Right.
Yeah, so we can go into that. Like, so I can go into a really detailed account if we want about.
I don't think we need to do too much.
I mean,
but...
anything that can like legitimately help us, I would very much appreciate, because I feel like there's especially with the COVID right now, I already knew going in that my days were numbered and I was going to be graduating fall 2021 unless something actually changes and I no longer can graduate a semester early, which so far looks like I'm still on track for that. But I mean, basically all of this semester we can't really progress as a club in the way that we would normally do, and that's what it feels like is also going to happen in the spring. So what does it mean? I need to like pretty much pivot entirely with like anything I wanted to do, find an online format, which it's mostly worked out, but I don't know how to keep up this momentum and keep moving on as a club when I basically can't really meet like any of the people in the e-board now or are joining the e-board now, and I can't really give them much direction in terms of a future when what they're experiencing right now is so completely different to what they would normally be experiencing if they do get to go back to that.
Yeah, it feels like if everyone else has their own medical leave, this is kind of like our medical leave.
Right.
Everything is on hold, not just the officers, but everything changed. It also sucks because like these bi-weekly logos that we have is like we had consistently like 20 or so, give or take, people come up, and now it's just like, well, yeah.
The plan was way before COVID. I wanted to run an actual tournament during spring break, and it just so happened to become an online one afterwards.
Right.
So there was already like a little bit of plan work, trying to make, big esports-y kinds of things, even though I never really can. I personally don't consider fighting games community to really be esports.
Yeah,
not in the way that other games would be. And I personally don't want it to ever be quite like that. Not only in terms of how events are structured, but how events are like organized.
We're both like poverty players, and esports kind of, unfortunately, feels very antithetical to poverty mindset sometimes, right?
It
Because it
definitely
does feel
is.
like it encourages like money chasing and cloud chasing over like, dude, let's go fucking play Gensokyo Reloaded, right? And let's go see like what crazy shit this discount Akuma has, right?
Yeah, let's look at this Toho Mugen fan game that just has like Toho fan characters and like kind of obscure characters that I've never even heard of.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
none
And
of
like
those
that
characters
kind
are-
of like I said, like at the end of the day, regardless of the framework of your predecessors, like it's whoever is in charge at the moment, it's really your vision of it, right? It's really your vision. So regardless of what we did before, like if your focus is on that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff you want to encourage, like that's what you just continue to do. Because unfortunately in this COVID time, all you can do is just set an example, right? All you can really do is set an example, aside from trying to be really on top of everyone and saying, hey, can we be on Discord calls? Can we do stuff like that? Because, so to start off with what Kim was saying, to go over, this all started because I reached out to everybody, like on Facebook. Like it was all digital. Like I said, that meeting of us all that's recorded on that YouTube channel was the first time we had really all met each other in person. That was my first time meeting a lot of them in person. And all of like everything was done over Facebook and Discord, Facebook Messenger and Discord. So it's not too asimilar from what you're going through right now, in the sense that everything is online, because also, a lot of this stuff happened over the summer where everyone's back home anyway. So that start of really coalescing everybody was the result of both Kim and I having that common goal and having that idea that that's what we want. But again, like, it's really about the lesson that you should take from it is really that the club only exists by the will of the people that run it, right? Because if you choose to focus on those things, so you're saying, like with the poverty mentality and having stuff, like I don't think that esports is to a degree antithetical to the poverty mindset, but that's only because, again, that goes back to this whole thing where it's like, oh, like it has to be at the money. Like, getting more people is like never a bad thing. If they're there for the wrong reasons, they'll simply leave. But it's very rare that they'll leave like a negative mark on the community, so long as it's the people running it that don't chase after it, right? That's the difference. It's if the people in charge are not the ones chasing after the money and the clout, then the event will be something that's made for the people. But that doesn't mean you can't spread your net and catch in other people who want to be there because it's like an actual thing, right? Like, if you're comfortable with and you just want to have the kind of concept where it's like, oh, it's fine, we just have some small meetings, we want people to be encouraged to do what they want, then, that is what it is. And that's all you have to do. There's really not like a hand-me-down process other than like, hey, this is how we run the club, here are our socials, like it's, here's how we do it, and that's up to you. Like, this is the example that we set, right? But if you're talking about like a succession thing, like a phase where you're really laying down the groundwork, that's esports, right? Esports is really just about systemic stuff. It's about creating a system around it that comes from the top down. In the private industry, it's run by money. In the collegiate industry, it's run by passion, because there is no money there. Like, especially for NYU, there ain't shit money there. So it's going to be the same as any kind of poverty mentality, but then you're still like running the esports, right? So for example, what happens to League when you go? What happens to Overwatch when you go? What happens to CSGO when you go? Are they still going to be under PGN? Who knows? It doesn't matter, because it's about what you want it to look like for your time here. And all you can do is let the people know who are participating, like that's what you're doing. And right now, by having us here and by having, those things run on the PGN channel, you're setting that example. You're setting the example that these things are how they go. And it's going to be up to the people that come after you to believe in that or not. And there's only so much you can do about that. You can't control people. The people that come later might be like somebody that's super hardcore about League for League, and they're just be like, nah, man, League should be its own thing. Fuck that. There's nothing you can do. There's absolutely zero things you can do, because egos are a thing, people are a thing, personal ambition is a thing, and it is what it is. So like, in terms of being worried about that future, I wouldn't worry about that future. What I would say is continue doing what you're doing. for yourselves, for your vision, because that's how we started. I reached out, Kim reached out because we wanted to create that community for ourselves, right? You two are steeped in and love the poverty fighting games community, so you want to create that for yourselves. That's cool. Like that's really all it's about, right? And then if you want to spread out, you're like, hey, I think it's really cool if we could spread that passion to people with a passion for other games. No, that's where you're now in our territory, right? Where it's the territory of, wouldn't it be great if we had finally had a fucking central hub for all of these things? A place where you just go, where do I go for video games and esports? And it's like PGN. And then it's like, okay, are they going to run everything? Not necessarily, but everyone buys into that same thing. And then that's where we kind of started. We reached out. I said, that's what we want to do. Like, we have failed so many times esports club, and at this point, who knows if it'll happen? But we can all work together in a grassroots way to make esports happen. Again, it's not about the money, it's about esports as a concept of like a central system. And that is where we got our idea and how we brought everyone together, because they're like, again, it's about the people helping each other. When one esport dies, it affects the other esports, right? CSGO not really having much of a community right now means that, let's say CSGO has another rebirth, which it basically was in the middle of prior to COVID bringing things back on land, back online. But the lands were getting bigger, like Katowice, like Cologne, all those huge ESL tournaments in the majors were having more viewers than ever. It was having basically a rebirth. So that CSGO starts blowing up again, and then maybe some other games start dying. The whole point was to create an ecosystem where there's a space. Like you said, there's a space for any game that becomes a poverty game, any game that no longer becomes a juggernaut, any game that is a juggernaut. It has a space there where everyone gets to participate if they want to. And that was our goal. And that's what we got everyone to buy into. But like I said, for your case, like you're asking, it's like, well, anything that would help. There's not really much to learn from it other than what kind of methodology do you prefer? Because in the sense that you're saying we don't want it to be very esportsy, well, does that mean you want to be hands off, right? Does that mean you're okay with people showing up late, or you just kind of like very laissez-faire about it, events run long, what have you? If you're fine with that, then that doesn't matter. For us, it was like, we are on such a constriction of what like OSARC wants us to do, of what NYU wants us to do. We're saying we're going to meet those expectations, and we're going to find our own way to work around all these things. Like, we're going to find our own way to create a system that works for us and supports everybody. And that's kind of how it all started. Like I said, that meeting happens because I say, this is a system we're creating. This is how we approach it. And this is the mentality you got to have as an officer. And that's what we wanted to pass down to our people if they believed in that. Again, it's all about, do you believe in that kind of concept? If you don't believe in that kind of concept, that's fine, and you need to pivot it in your own direction how you want, and you live with that. And one of the challenges, so you already don't face one of the big challenges that we faced back then, which is getting these officers to be under our umbrella, in the sense that in name, everything was under PGN back then, but Smash Ultimate, like Smash 4, was all done under Paul's channel, right? Like Melee, like, didn't stream for the longest time because somebody broke the stream setup by accident.
What?
Like, yeah, I mean, it just kind of broke, and then Hoheb didn't have time to fix it at the time. Like, Hearthstone and Overwatch just were like completely separate, and it was like impossible to like reach out to them for a while, because Hearthstone was really very ad hoc, and they just happened to be the second best Hearthstone team in the entire world, even though it was just thrown together. Arguably the first, if we didn't get screwed by NYU again. But basically, it's stuff like that where our challenge was getting people to buy in completely. They bought in terms of organization, but they didn't buy in terms of putting in the work and letting things be under one branch. They wanted to, well, we're Hearthstone, so we want to market under NYU Hearthstone. It's like, okay, that's fine, I guess. But then when they ask, like, how are we going to divide the money? Where are the sponsors coming from? It's stuff like that where, like, we wanted to have an overarching system that controlled it all, because then you have one place for everyone to go. And that one place supports everyone in a way that's positive for everyone. Like, I think people still didn't get into the mentality of, oh, we're all one big community. It was a mentality of like, oh, my community is out for itself, and we'll use this so long as we need it. Some were less like that than others, obviously, And then at the end of the day, it was also up to how much effort the officers could put in. Like, Paul put in so much effort. He brought this, it was his personal stream setup. He brought that to every single local. He TO'd for every single local. He played in every single thing. He managed all the Facebook groups. He was very on top of all of that as a labor of passion. Whereas like Counter-Strike was like very ad hoc. Like, unfortunately, it was a product of the fact that it wasn't that, like, it wasn't a large community, right? It didn't have like a lot of participants, but it had enough. You know, Peter ran a team. And they did okay. They did fine. I would say they underperformed for their talent, and I think he would probably agree, but that is what it is. And he faced the struggle of like not being able to get new members, because that was also during the time where Counter-Strike wasn't as glamorous as it was. And it just is what it is. That's the whole point. Like, if we had been able to keep that system together and keep Counter-Strike alive to a certain degree, during the time where Counter-Strike LAN started exploding again, you have a huge influx of Counter-Strike players. And then now you have a community ready to help them build back up. And that's kind of like where we are coming from. Again, wherever you guys want to take it, that's how you want to do it. Because for us, we never got to fully realize that. Because again, nobody was able to fully file themselves under PGN. Because you just had people fighting you from all sides, right? It's like, we want to be like NYU this, we want to be NYU that. It's like, you can have all your subgroups or whatever. Nobody's saying you can't have agency or like talk about your own shit. But the whole point is like making people understand how systems work. Like, first, the university system is not your friend. Second, the ecosystem of esports is not about money and clout. It's about systemic organization to make sure things are run in a tight ship. And then third is to just have a system set in place for yourselves, so you don't get eaten alive by what's supposed to be a passion of love, turning into something that becomes work. I said you have to treat it like a job, but that's about treating it with respect. It's not necessarily you have to work yourself to death. It's about treating this labor of love with respect. The more laissez-faire you are, the less returns you're going to get, because you're going to miss out on opportunities, or you're not going to be there for what you need to be there for. Take it too seriously, you burn yourself out and you can no longer enjoy the community, right? So that's kind of like the three things that I would say are lessons that were supposed to be taught from our experience during that time. And the first part of that was the meeting. The last part of that is when each individual head, you can see the growth, right? You can see what happens. Counter-Strike unfortunately falls off and there's nobody to really take over. Right? Overwatch similarly loses its head and then kind of just, they're probably still a very good team, and then they come out suddenly with a really sick video, but, they're kind of like an independent entity, right? And we don't really have that with it. Like, there's no transition there, right? It just so happens that somebody was there. Melee, it just so happens that their community is super tight knit and that their transition is very grassroots. Like, they actually had people ready to take over every semester. But every year, there's a joke in NYU Melee that, is this the year that Melee dies? Because the people are graduating and they haven't found the freshman that's going to take over. They haven't found the person that's going to take over. Now, obviously, Slippy changes things, but that's besides the point. But each community ends up struggling on its own, right? And that's what we were trying to set the framework for people to buy in and say, like, why do you have to struggle alone? And it's the same thing in the real world. Why are we each struggling alone? Wouldn't the world be a better place if we actually just give out a helping hand to each other at no personal cost to ourselves? It costs nothing to just be like, yeah, you can do it. Like, you should do it. You're worthwhile to do it. Just do it. And we're there in case you need us to shout you out, whatever. Shit like that. Like, we shouted out the crew battles when they happened. We shouted out, the tournaments when they happened. We shouted out, new members, highlight videos, etc., etc. So that was our thing, right? If that's what you seek to pursue, then my highest recommendation is simply just making sure you're getting in touch with the people you need to get in touch with. Now, again, the hard work is done because they have reached out to you, right? It is not anyone's responsibility to take over, right? Like, it is purely, again, it is a project of passion. If anybody wants to take over, they need to make it known. They need to let people know. And if there is a space that needs to be taken over, that needs to be made known too. Because I think one of the problems for me and Kim is that also that we were not great about is that we were not great about telling people really how much help was needed, right? Like we would say like, we need you to do this, we need you to do this, but it's not about, it's more like, we need you to do this because if you don't do this, we're done. Like it's over. The dream is dead, and we're just like, we're throwing things into the void, the black hole that is this project, right? And at the end of the day, having that happen was like, we avoided having it become a black hole, I would say. But it was certainly where a lot of people did not realize what it really took to get things of that scope up and running. So that's why I say it's all about whoever takes over, what scoping you want to do. The most important thing you can do is scope your project accordingly. Because once you scope that accordingly, you know what work needs to be done. There's like no advice I can give you for that, because you will already know what work needs to be done, because you will do it in your own way. There's no way that you're supposed to do it, right? There's no way that it's supposed to happen. Because when you try to force things, that's where things fall apart. That's where people try and they don't like that. People go and do their own shit. People disagree. And you either have to have an iron will where you just yell at everybody for a whole hour and you just say, this guy, we've got to be done, guys. This is the vision we're doing, and you're going to follow it, or I'm just going to kick your ass out. Like, that's it. I call that the Wyldfire school of thought. Or you can have the school of thought where you actually just kind of let people do what they want and see how it works out. And you just do your own thing. And I call that also the older wizened Wyldfire school of thought, where it's like, you understand that everybody's gonna have their own thing. You can't force them to do anything, and it's not worth your time and effort. Like, I would hate to see you two burn out and like start hating the games that you love because you're forced to put too much of yourselves into making it happen. Like, that's my advice to you personally, because that's what happened with Kim, that's what happened with me, and that's just something where it's like, it's not worth it until the people themselves, the member themselves, prove themselves worthy of that, because it's a two-way street. When you do the work to create the community, but if the community isn't there, if the community isn't there to do anything, then what are you doing it for? If there's actually no community and you're just forcing it, then there's no point. But if you find yourselves in a community where you said there's 10, 20, 25 people that all come through, right? That all just like are able to play in those locals and have a good time. Well, you found it. It's for them. It's for them. And if they don't want any of the other stuff, then there's nothing else to do, and you have a good thing going. But if suddenly now you have people like League and all these other people coming in and they buy in, they say, yeah, we're fine. Like, we just want to run it on your stream. We just want to do it together. We just want you to shout us out on your Twitter. That's pretty easy, and that's up to you. But maybe it's like, you know what? Make your own stuff. Do your own stuff, because that's too much for us, right? It really all depends on where you want to take it. And that's probably like as far as I will go into that part of it, because it seems like what you seek is not so much just a historical telling, but what lessons you can learn from it. And like, those are the lessons that you can learn from it, is that don't burn yourselves out, scope things correctly, and understand that at the end of the day, it's just however you, the owners of the club, want to do things. That's it. It's not about how anybody else wants to do things. The community can want whatever they want, but they will rally, like they will naturally gravitate towards something, and you just build your own community, because the people that will be a part of it will show up, right? They'll show up. They showed up to your locals. The Tetris people showed up to that thing. The Melee people showed up. The League teams are showing up, right? That's the whole point. It's like, when they show up, your job is a lot easier. Is when they don't show up, or when you try to make them show up to stuff that they don't care about, that's where you get in trouble, because you care more about it than the people around you. You have to know when to let go.
The thing that's like scary about this is it's not that far off from like the conclusion that I felt was back like 6 months ago, where I already felt like, I mean, this was the semester I became president. Spring semester of this year. Pretty much as soon as COVID happened in March-ish, February/March, and then going into when pretty much the entire campus locks down, early March, and then gets extended into April, and then everything gets shut down.
Yeah.
It kind of already felt back then that, well, we have all these communities. They're like kind of doing stuff. I like basically don't talk to these people, but they're like kind of doing something on their own. But overall, this club isn't really going anywhere besides like these sub communities. And that these sub communities are pretty much what defines the entire club, and the club in of itself doesn't really do anything on its own besides just being some kind of big umbrella directory for like, you know, you want to play a league, you can go over here. You want to play fighting games, we do that here only because I run it. But you know, you want to play fucking Counter-Strike, I don't know, there's just like maybe like 2 people around. Until very recently when someone actually made a Discord and made a CSL team. But it's like, because it's so easy to make a community nowadays when you can just fire up a Discord and I don't know, what do you want to do? You want to play Genshin Impact? Boom, we have a Discord with like 300 people suddenly. Do you want to play Among Us? Boom, we got a Discord with like 2,000 people for some reason or something like that. It's like, well, I can't really support these communities in the way I would because one, how do you support an Among Us community when I feel like this game is legitimately gonna die out in like 3 months? And 2, it's like, well, what exactly is this supposed to be? It's just like people playing Among Us. It's not like they're like, you know, a team trying to compete in something. It's just people hanging out.
There is like this certain image that he's kind of trying to foster for PGN, right?
Yeah, there definitely is that image because it's like, well, I've had people ask me this, like a few different people, like, hey, do you like do like more casual events? And it's like I always felt like, well, how do I foster that? I don't think it's logistically possible.
There are events that are more casual friendly and more like not as serious. Like the mystery tournament would be one of them, but I don't. But it's not the exact same thing as like a casual event, right? There's still a winner and a loser. There's still like competition, right?
Yeah, I'm not running, you know, Among Us lobbies. I'm not running like games of fucking Jackbox or whatever party game people want.
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's like
it's not
weird
even
odds between a lot of these people that are kind of like passing by, which I don't know, maybe they might not be passing by if we provided for some of these things, but it always feels hard to be trying to force this community to exist when it feels like there's seemingly no one wanting to put in effort for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of exactly my point, is that like you can only host what you feel is right. You see what I'm saying? Like that's the operating words you see forced. If you feel like you're forcing it, then there's nothing to do there. There's nothing to do there. Why are you forcing yourself to do that? You're not forcing yourself to run Melty Blood. You're not forcing yourself to run Sailor Moon S. You're not forcing yourself to run Windjammers. You didn't force yourself to run Melee. You're like, that would be pretty cool. Like, I like those games. You're not forcing yourself to run, like, to have League streamed on the thing. You just, okay, we can do that. You guys want to do your thing, we can do that. That's what I mean, where it's like, it sounds like right now for you guys that you are kind of following in our footsteps, almost quite literally, in the sense that you desire a product. You desire a product and an identity. And so for Kim, she can speak about the casual stuff because she was still able to do that without compromising the identity, in the sense. Like, when we were doing our whole esports thing, Kim still ran plenty of events that were like casual, and she still got like 30, 40 people. Because you say, well, how do we host anything for Among Us? Well, it's very easy. You just say, hey guys, Tuesday night on Discord, everybody get into the PGN one and play. Like, there's gonna be many lobbies of Among Us, and you can just bounce from game to game to game, and you just hang out, and like people can stream it or whatever in Discord. It's like, just hang out. There's like a peanut gallery. It's like, hey, watch this Among Us game, might be fun. It's like, you know, because there's plenty of people. If it's a fucking super large Discord, there's plenty of people who are gonna want to watch it or like it. So, you know, stuff like that, where it's just like, it's harder when you don't have the offline component, obviously, because the offline component is everybody get in the room and play whatever the hell you want. That's how you get casuals, right? That's how you get casuals. You feature some casual game and you just say, that's the featured one, but bring whatever the hell you want and come through. And like I said, people will just come through and do it. When it's online, you basically just say, well, you guys were going to do that anyway. We're just going to like say we're featuring it. You know what I'm saying? And then like, what can you do? Oh, well, somebody could stream it. So then you just have somebody stream it. And then like that in and of itself is support, right? In and of itself is support by just saying, hey, we're here and we recognize you. Like we, PGN the club, recognize you. You are a thing, right? And that's like legitimizing enough. But if you feel you're forcing it, where it's like, oh, like how am I supposed to do this, or I can't do this, or I'm doing this thing and like nobody is willing to put in the effort for it, drop it, right? Like that's like the lesson that I learned, is that the club's image comes from two things. It comes from, like I said, the will of the owners, but it will be sublimated by whether the community wants to put effort in it. And so the owners need to know when to let go if the community is not going to support it. And if the community complains about it, then the owners point to the community and they say, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. It gets a two-way street, right? We don't just make things happen and do things. You must participate in them. You don't participate in them, we don't do them anymore. And that's kind of like how it is, where we spread ourselves thin during that time. We hosted Counter-Strike events, we hosted Overwatch events, and just not enough people showed up. So then that ends up spreading ourselves thin, where we're running 3-4 events a week, and some of them are just not worth it, right? Some of them are just taking time and effort out of us. Like, I think it was a Counter-Strike event, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a Counter-Strike event where like 4 people showed up, and like the main event of the Counter-Strike event is you and Stanley doing the 50 fucking McDonald's nuggets challenge.
No, we were,
What?
yeah, well, we were doing that in the back, but yeah.
Is this streamed somewhere? Is there a
No.
bot of
No,
this?
there's-
God damn it.
Yeah, no, this is not streamed, but
Sounds
I mean, there were
interesting,
like
though.
there were like 8
I
people in
know.
the room. 4 people were there for Counter Strike. They were playing that in the front of the room, and then like the rest of us, like me, Stanley, and then we had 2 spectators, of like 2 people spectating us, just eating 50 nuggets.
50
I like
nuggets.
calling them spectators. It's like,
Because they were legitimately, because I know, because they were legitimately there just sitting watching Kim and Stanley, like, can they do it, can they do the 50 nuggets? Like, they were there for the 50 nuggets, there was no question about it. So it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, you made your fun out of it, but what if those 50 nuggets weren't there? Now it's just 6 people there. You're hosting this Counter-Strike event where the people playing aren't going to feel that good because there's not enough people, and then the people hosting are going to feel awful because you just spent your entire night and your entire effort prior to that getting the room reservation, getting the food, doing the other stuff, and now you're just sitting there like, oh god, like this is so boring. Like I could have just been home playing Counter-Strike with my friends. Like, so it's stuff like that where you got to recognize what it is that you want to do with your community, but then also letting the community dictate what it is that's allowed to happen. So like that, this whole league tournament thing doesn't happen if none of those people sign up for it. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. We had same thing. Like people organize league tournaments while we were in our tenure, and then they like wouldn't stream it on the PGN channel. You know what I mean? Because they just wanted, they're like, well, I organized, I want to do my own thing. Again, it's like not about that. It's like, okay, you did your own thing, and then where did it go? You didn't get anywhere with it because it wasn't part of an organization. You didn't actually have like a quality check. It was just you doing your thing. And guess what? Riot doesn't give a shit about you. So how'd that pan out? Now you shot yourself in the foot and you shot us in the foot, right? So you guys already don't deal with that problem to a certain degree. And like I said, that happened organically. Like you said, they reached out to you. So that's what you let happen. If it happens, you accept it and you make the most of the opportunity. But to make yourselves like pigeonhole yourselves into something, to force yourselves into something, that's where you run yourself into trouble. And you should just do what you like to do. It sounds like what you like to do is the fighting game shit. Just do that and then let the other people help you. As long as everyone is kind of on the same page, like maybe you need one Discord call with all your e-board members, all these other community leaders, and just say, hey, like, you know, we talked to these other people and like this is kind of seems like how it's going to shake out. Like, is everybody on board with that? And it's like, yep, okay, that's it. That's all we got to talk about. Discord call over, 15 minutes. Probably is actually going to go for an hour and a half because those things never go on time. But it's just kind of
like, it's good to listen to the community, but at the same time, listening to the community itself is not the one. It's not self-actualizing. They're not the people that are actually sustaining
right
themselves. Like they're not the people that are putting it all together. They're not the people that are making it possible for them to even be a community. So at the same time, like while we appreciate the community for being there, you're the ones that will be shaping it. So you dictate how it goes. Like,
Right, exactly. Like when I
if
say,
people are intimidated by esports, like, that's kind of their problem. Like, you don't have to be a god to participate and enjoy esports. You could be a spectator. You can just enjoy the game. You don't have to be the best at it to try at a game. I think that we could all agree that trying at a game is kind of what makes games fun to begin with. So I mean, you know,
right,
you
like
kind of define it. You kind of define the parameters of the community yourself, and then all you can do is shove it into a direction. Especially if you're leaving soon, I would say to, look for people who are similarly passionate and care and have a vision. I mean, I would say that's like pretty hard. I don't actually think that that's very feasible. I think that the best you can do is put it in someone's hands that will at least keep it the way it is, and then it'll be the odd numbers thing again.
yeah, like that's why I say, like, to clarify, when I say you let the community dictate, it's like, are they showing up? That's pretty much it. Like, are they showing up? But you don't let them dictate in terms like, oh, we want this thing. It's like, no, go fuck yourself. Like, if you want this thing, then do it.
Every single semester, we have people come in. It's like, is there FIFA? And it's like, okay, we'll run it.
Dude, is there an Xbox and PlayStation gamers?
PlayStation gamers.
Yeah, and
Holy
it's like,
shit.
okay, like, sure, like, everybody wants FIFA, like, we'll give them a FIFA, and then, we would have a FIFA event, like, every semester, but, like, those FIFA people don't show up for anything else, so it's like, it doesn't really help us that much, other than the fact that we can show it to OSAR. It's like, hey, yeah, like, look, like, 80 people.
Yeah, we had 80 people for FIFA.
Look at this very safe game.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you shouldn't worry about that. You shape the direction you wanted to go. You just have to be ready to admit if it's like, oh, like 2 people showed up. Okay, maybe not quite that direction. But again, you have your like 10, 20. Your fighting game thing is going well. Like, there's no reason to like change it. And like I said, for especially during the COVID times, it's especially difficult to find that person, those people that are going to take over. So that's why I was focusing on, you just set an example. That's it. You set an example for how you do things, and it's up to the people to continue that if they want to, and you just have to let them know. You shouldn't just be like, okay, we set the example, bye, and then everyone's like, wait, where'd they go?
So, like, I mentioned, the awkwardness of general, like, timing communities as a huge hindrance to our growth earlier on. Because of the fact that, like, it's so hard to create a community that actually has an identity without people actually, like, talking to each other. So I would say that that's also, like, a huge focus that maybe you should be focusing on. Sorry, this is kind of redundant, but like, I think that if you can create an environment where people feel more, able to be expressive and, feel like they can talk to and relate to other people, that in itself would foster a community that is gonna dictate where PGN is gonna go next, because that's gonna, improve engagement, and it's going to improve just people caring about the community at all, and then it's going to shape an identity where it'll feel natural where the club goes. So I think that a lot of, like, running PGN is not really just about the games. Like, I think that we, like, for us, like, the push towards esports, I mean, esports in itself is an extremely passionate thing. It's not that I care especially much about any particular esport. It's more so the fact that esports, kind of by a definition, requires people that care about the thing itself.
And it's inherently social.
Exactly, and that was really helpful for us because it gave us shape and direction for where to take certain communities, because it would naturally attract people who are into that sort of thing, like into being active participants in the community and game that they're part of. So for us, that was esports. It doesn't have to be esports for you guys. I mean, you guys were kind of talking earlier about like poverty games and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that they are at odds with each other. Like, trying to make a competitive based community, I don't think that's necessarily at odds with games that are hard to get like support for. I think that they often kind of go hand in hand. But I mean, I think that if anything, the events that you guys can be focusing on don't even have to necessarily feature games, because I would say that making a community, like forcing community to happen, is probably more important. I think that you guys have a better standing right now than we did, because like the Discord is popping off, you know, like you guys
Yeah,
are
that's already like a huge thing, is that you have a active, like a live active thing, like like an active Facebook group is like, okay, our forums are active, you know what I mean? It's not the same as like, I see you guys and like there's actual like 5, 6, 7 people in the same Discord room, you know, actually doing stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Like that's what you want to focus on. You want to focus on like engaging the community, because it does, like, esports is about community, not about product. If it was about product, then they wouldn't be bleeding out money everywhere. Like all these companies are bleeding out money because at the end of the day, people are participating because they're a community. Then they're going to try to leverage this community into ads, into merch, or into whatever, and that's how you become profitable. But it starts with the people first. It's not just like a product. That's why when you feel like certain things come out and you're like, oh, that's just soulless, like that shouldn't be esports, right? It's again like the stigma of esports being something that's just money and stuff like that came from its early stages, because North America is just so behind. Like Korea's not like that. You know what I'm saying? Korea wasn't like that. You know, Liquid and OGN and all that shit and Star Series existed way before North American esports, and that shit was popping. Like fucking Firebat Hero, they're fucking grand finals in an airport, and Firebat Hero dry humping the fucking air in his fucking swim trunks after he dunks somebody. Like that's fucking esports, dude. Like it's not about like it's about personality, about community, and it's about everybody flaming the loser. Like it's about shit being fun.
Like people
This
don't
really
take-
sounds like FGC. Like when
and that's what the energy was. That's what the energy was. That's esports. It's just that American capitalism obviously corporatized a lot of it.
Like, right. I mean, like the whole thing about like, you know, gamers being the most depressed, whatever. It's like, I mean, it comes from the fact that esports is the way that it is. Like, you know, the whole like capitalism like side of it is because we kind of do have to play that game on, you know, on that scale for people to even take it seriously. Like we need to kind of look like sports for people to take us like sports.
Right, because
culturally it's a little bit cringe, I won't lie.
It's big cringe because culturally America isn't ready.
If you're not speaking the same language as the people that are going to sponsor you, then you're not going to get sponsored. So I don't know. I have a lot of respect for esports. I wouldn't say that I really care for the overproduction of it, like that you would see in a lot of like tournaments and stuff like that. But I think at its core, in its grassroots stages, you know, which is what you're dealing with primarily. You're not going to be dealing with, you know, you're not going to be able to hire, you know, commentator, like professional commentators or anything that's gonna, you know, you're not gonna be able to have that kind of production value. So you're really dealing with grassroots. You're gonna be dealing with people, you know, at the bottom that really do care and that are gonna be putting their own blood, sweat, and tears in it. So I wouldn't necessarily shy away from esports. I think it's it's really lucrative in the sense that it's not like financially lucrative, but it's really valuable in terms of creating hype, creating community, and, you know, creating care, you know, about, you know, the thing that the thing at hand.
Yeah, that is kind of the lessons from the middle. I don't know if that kind of addresses your concerns, because obviously it seems like you're still kind of also figuring out for yourselves rather, what exactly you feel is the problem, what exactly you feel.
I feel like this thing that we're doing right now doesn't just exist for no reason. Like there, you know, this satisfies a certain like inquisitive side of gaming, right? We're not just brain dead, you know, button mashers. You clearly also care about the history of things, but also just how all this comes together, right? Like I think that's also important. There's a whole part of, so when I started doing PGN, I was pretty I wouldn't just say open, I was pretty excited about the potential of PGN going in a direction that for like design and, you know, that kind of stuff, like because that's what I went to NYU for, is, you know, I personally did like game design and stuff like that. And, you know, it can go in that direction as well, you know, a more analytical, a more like I said, like inquisitive approach to games, and I think that could be also more inclusive. So honestly, really, it's really what you're interested in and are willing to put effort towards. Because people, like, you're always gonna get people that will and won't show up to things, and you just gotta try things out and lay the groundwork so that it can actually be a thing. Because people aren't necessarily gonna ask for certain things that they haven't even thought of.
How are we gonna follow that up, dude?
I don't know.
I don't know how we're
I
supposed to
don't know.
follow that up.
I
That was a
zero clue.
lot.
Well,
No,
yeah.
Like,
Damn.
here's been like my like short-term strategy for the time being, right? If we're talking about like terms of direction of the club, not only short-term but long-term, I don't know what the long-term is going to be. I really feel like the long-term could either be the club collapses within a year and a half, or
I mean, you have your candidate. I don't know if you want to like say who you're thinking of, especially like when I don't think you've even talked to them about it, but you have told me about the person you're kind of eyeing for, like who could be the
continuing
next
the club. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like I
But
still
because
feel
we've had people
uneasy
that
about
show-
other sub communities still existing,
Yeah.
and how to keep them up as well. Because I feel like League is gonna be fine. League's gonna be fine. Fighting games probably not gonna be fine, but I mean it'll keep up as long as people want it to, right? And that I'm honestly not that worried about, because I feel like there's still so many avenues to be playing fighting games in New York that it'll still pick up at some capacity.
I think it is nice to like know that there's a place in your school where like you belong and you could like straight up hang out with people. It's like I've met James and like Jorge, and well, actually no, we met Jorge in like Playtest Thursday. That's different. But
Yeah, but like we've
It's
met
like,
a lot
you
of people through PGN as
Yeah.
like running fighting game events.
and, it's like, hey, if you're in the cafeteria, you're like, oh, I actually know that dude. I'm gonna sit with him instead of being like, damn, I don't know where to go. Well, also haven't.
Also, don't go there because that place fucking sucks.
It does fucking suck. The fucking like the people
Blackman.
there are real nice, but holy shit, dude. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
that has not changed in my entire time there.
Yeah,
That
the two things stayed constant: the cafeteria food and the budget of the club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, like, in terms of that, like, you already, right now what you're doing is you're stressing about something that hasn't even happened yet, right?
Yeah.
And that's also kind of my point, is that you can only deal with whatever's in front of you, right? You can only deal, like you said, you haven't even talked to that person yet about taking over. You don't even know where you want to bring it. So why stress about that? Continue doing what you're doing and just make the most of the opportunity that you have. Like, you're worried, it's like, oh, our fighting game's gonna die after I leave. It's not necessarily. There's plenty of people who play fighting games who probably aren't graduating the same time as you, and good luck, God bless. I hope that you are able to get the jobs that you want when you guys leave. But the big thing with like certain communities, like for example NYU Melee, why is it so successful? Because all of the alums still participate in it, right? So like just by making your voice heard and saying like, hey, like I used to run this thing, I love fighting games, you guys like still doing fighting games, that might honestly just be enough, you know what I mean? Because they're gonna do the same thing that you're gonna do, is like, oh hey, yeah, like why don't we just run this one thing, right? And then that gets some people, and then you meet the new people, and then those new people are like, yeah, let's keep doing that, and then it's like that easy, right? That was like our problem, is that there was no framework before us. Like the framework that I started died with me because I had to go on medical leave for like an entire year and a half, and so that like entire framework and like the generations of people who I had interacted with were already leaving by the time that I had come back, because I was still another year out from even helping with it with Kim. So that's something where like you're already going to be in a better spot where you're actually here, right? You're actually here and doing the stuff. There's no medical leave this time. Like the COVID stuff is happening, but you're still here online. Your Discord is popping, and like that's really good. And that's the thing where it's like, as long as, you know, you're still interested in this stuff and you think it's something you care about, and that's why I said don't burn yourself out. The reason it's hard for us to like participate in a lot of this stuff, like Kim loves Tetris, but it's probably not really going to be any real scenario where she joins a Tetris tournament. Not because she doesn't support it, not because she doesn't like it, but we're like so burnt out from just interacting and like being a part of it and seeing it, that as much as we love seeing it from the outside in. We love seeing you guys have a community, but being a part of it again kind of just drags up stuff from inside that we just don't really want to deal with and feel like baggage from it that is just not something we want to deal with. So it's kind of something where it's like, all you can do is, like I said, my advice is focus on what's in front of you and do what you want. Don't worry about games that are going to die. All you have to worry about is, who are you working with right now? Are they on the same page? And is there somebody that you feel like you can give this to afterwards? If that's something you can do, you just keep on trucking and keep on creating that space. If the answer is yes, you've already got your things set up for you. All you have to do is address them and talk to people. I think like the biggest thing was that a lot of times people just weren't talking to each other. That's why it was so significant for us to get everybody in the same room, because it's like, wow, you know, this is the first time anybody actually bothered reaching out, right? None of the communities reached out to each other. So it's that kind of thing where you're like, if you care a lot about that and you don't want certain communities to die, you just reach out and just be like, hey, like, you know, who's in charge? Who's going to be in charge? How can we help? Stuff like that. And if they're going to die, that's where I said, let the community dictate. If there's no community for it, that is what it is. Like Among Us, right? If that game dies in 3 months, that game dies in 3 months. That's it. Like, there's nothing you could do about that. And that's not your job. That's not your job to do that. Your job is to provide for your vision and provide for what people show up to. Like, we provided for FIFA. We did the one event. They didn't show up to anything else, so we're not going to provide a ton for you, but we provide the one event for you. We'll never say no to that one FIFA.
So I would say the reason why this is even happening right now, like, you know, us being here, how this, you know, how we are able to, you know, look back fondly on all this stuff, and, you know, for us to, you know, talk with you guys and talk about our experiences. Like, this wouldn't happen if we didn't lay the ground. If you never saw Ryan's video, for example, like if we didn't put in that effort, then this wouldn't have happened. So similarly, if you continue to just feed the system that is PGN right now, like this is a living, breathing system that you guys are fostering right now. I think that's plenty. You know what I mean? Like, people are gonna do with that what they want to, and it's going to live and it's going to die on its own, right? It's gonna suffer. It's gonna be malnourished, like, for you know what, if people aren't interested in it. But then, you know, once, you know, people inject more passion into it, more effort, more energy, it's gonna come back. So all you have to do is continue doing what you're doing. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I think just, you know, it's like, recognize it as a system.
Is this our Wildfire send-off? Like, not send-off, is this our equivalent of the Wildfire 40-minute video?
It is.
I don't
It
know if it
like
is.
effectively is,
I mean,
because yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Well, I mean, primarily with this, we didn't necessarily have a prompt with
Yeah.
with this, but it seems like that's what's come up after we've talked, you know, at length about, you know, our history with it. Is that primarily it seems like you guys don't quite know where to take this next, and, you know, we have this whole history, like, what do we do next? Like, what does all of this mean? So yeah, in effect, yeah, this is the kind of send off that
Right, like, this is that 1 hour video because this is you, except it's more exploratory, right? This is you figuring out for yourselves by reaching out to the people that came before you where you want to go with it. That's why I keep putting the emphasis on you. We might be the guests, but you guys are the actualizers of this whole thing. Like, we're not part of this anymore. Like, we're part of it in the sense that, you know, I'll support it, I'll shout you guys out, you know, sometimes I'll put some money in the pot, but, like, aside from that, like, you know, I'm not the one organizing this stuff anymore. I'm not the one making the rules. I'm not the one calling the shots. And God bless. So, like, because for you, because you don't know where you want to go with it, the reason this is the same thing is because I came in with the vision. I said, this is my vision, you follow it or you're out. That's it. You're coming in with this, it's like, we have stuff, we did stuff already, but we don't know if that's our vision, right? And then that's basically where it's like, well, that's fine. Now you have a whole 2 hours of stuff to mull over, to be like, How does that fit in? Did I agree with that? No. Okay, so that's not part of it. Did I agree with that? Yes, that's part of it. Did I like when he said that? Okay, cool. Did I like when she said that? Yeah, let's take that. Okay, she said this one thing, but I don't agree. And like, again, that's why I keep saying it's totally fine. Like, what lessons we learned and we got from our stuff are not necessarily going to be the same that you're going to do, because your scenario is already different from ours. But yeah, like this is something for future generations as well to look back on and say like, hey, like this is what Wyldfire said, this is what Kong said, this is what Ma said, this is what Binko said, and I agree with these parts of it. And then they're gonna go and find their vision for it, right? So like I said, that's why it's like so pointless to, unless you're intending to like stay with this thing for like 5-6 years afterwards, in the sense like you're actually going to actively participate in it, there's no point in like worrying about that future, because that's just the nature of collegiate clubs, right? The nature of collegiate clubs is going to be a rotating door of officers who all have different ideas. The only thing that keeps it stable is like when you actually have true university support to really solidify a culture. But really what it is many clubs, even with that, still change their culture all the time. And you know, like for example, there are schools that have clubs that are dedicated to League of Legends alone, and sometimes those clubs are more focused on esports, sometimes those clubs are more focused on ARAM, casual partying, and earth and shit like that. And that's just the way it shakes out. So you just gotta take advantage of the opportunity in front of you to do what you want to do. Again, like, you let the community show what they'll participate in, but you dictate the terms of the stuff that you're providing, you know, and then you just have to say what works for you and what doesn't, and what you like. Because there might be something, you might host like an event and you get like 40 something people. Like for example, you already made that decision. Melee got like a shitload of participants and a lot of viewers. Tetris got a shitload of participants and viewers. You already said that's not the main featured game for next time, because that's not how we want to do things. So
Yeah.
you're already making that part of your vision. It's not about what gets you the most views and participation. It's about like what feels honest to how you want to run things, right? And like that's how it's gonna be. That's how it's gonna, like, it's all about you personally, like you two or your officers, like what vision that is, and how democratic you want that is up to you, right? I was a despot. That's it. I did no democracy in my thing. I asked you what you thought. I asked everybody. Everybody got to put in their 2 cents. And then I made the final call. That's how I did things back then.
You
I
know
would
how
still,
the
yeah,
sorry,
whether
go ahead,
it worked or not. So, but you know how you guys want to do it. That's up to you. Maybe you want to have like an official vote in council, or maybe it's like, well, nobody else is putting in the work to put these things together, so we have the final say anyway. So, you know, like I said, that's just it's all about your vision, and that's what this is turned into. Right, I came in expecting that this would be kind of like a history lesson, and I'm glad that it's not, because I think that I've told that story many times, like in much more detail about the actual history, and each time I tell it, a little more of me dies inside, just because of how just so much misfortune at every turn, in terms of like, you can point the finger at so many things, and including myself. I know I didn't handle a lot of things as well as I could, and I learned from those experiences in the same way that when you look back, and you're going to look back at this video, you'll be like, wow, I wish I had done this thing different, or like, wow, how did I miss that from this thing? And that's it. You just learn from it. You can't blame yourself for it. And that's why I said think in the present. Don't obviously have a plan, but don't get so concerned and stressed where it's like, like, what am I going to do about this? Is it going to die? Those questions they're transient. They won't be answered in any shape or form until they happen. So the only thing you can do is just do what's right in front of you, and then use that as a guiding light, like saying, okay, well, I don't want fighting games to die, so I will just put a little extra work into the fighting games, or I'll find somebody that's really passionate and say, hey, I would like you to keep running these events after I go, you know, stuff like that. So, and that will also get easier as you keep doing it, because like I said, you've already found a bunch of people who like participating, and now all you have to do is find how you want to mold that for yourselves.
I'm just here trying to like think over what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's all good.
I guess in terms of like short-term strategy, then I've been my main goal was to increase online presence and really just try to like document like publicly, this is what we're doing, this is what we have been doing, because I feel like so much of the groundwork here isn't like really visible unless you really just try to dig for it. But even then, you still need to be internal to the club to really be able to find out and seek out a lot of this stuff. And it doesn't help that fucking NYU, we had this huge transition to a new club like web page system.
Right.
That in some ways is better, some ways blows even more ass than OrgSync ever did.
Fuck.
It's like, wow, all of our previous events, basically all the attendance records, basically wiped. So many events are like harder to find. Like for some reason, if you go to our club page, it doesn't even, it lists that we were like made in like 2018 or something, which is like completely wrong.
Right.
It's like kind of a nightmare, but it also shows like a lot of people, freshmen in particular, like don't know how this system works. They don't know that there's an entire page for clubs. You can go through this entire directory. You can just join them, and they post stuff there. You'll be on a mailing list of like events. And then there's also like the inverse of like people come here, they join the Discord, they join their Discord for whatever games they want, and then they never get officially documented as being part of the club. They show up in like events because I don't know, they only like Overwatch or something, which is fine, but then they never get documented as part of the club, so there's no like real, I guess, benefit for like seeking out these people. It becomes really hard to document them. Like one of the reasons why I wanted to start up the stream on the Twitch channel was as soon as I got access to it, because I asked regulars about like, oh hey, do we have a Twitch channel? Can I use it? And he just sent me like the passwords list. After a while, I became the president. I basically like got a control over the email address, and it made it a lot easier to like access accounts easily because email 2FA is like kind of annoying. Like we've tried to publicize our Twitter account. We had a huge social media rebrand with the new graphics assets that Matt made.
Hello.
And then we've been trying to like publicize ourselves. And I feel like a lot of that has also like been directly beneficial not only now, because I don't think the Matcherino sponsorship could have happened if we didn't pull 100 people watching the Tetrio bracket. And I don't think it could have happened if we didn't document and stream all these matches.
I was like so lucky as well that we just randomly got featured on WPL.
Yeah, and it's also like, it also wouldn't have happened unless that bracket happened so late at night.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they were doing the the Tetrio Open and the what was it called? The Underdogs Open bracket, right? It's like 400-man bracket or some shit. Pretty crazy, huh?
I've been trying to like reach out to other schools in the local area, and by local area I mean more like as far west as like Pennsylvania, as far south as like Virginia, as far north as like some places along the border in Canada. I've been searching far and wide for like mostly fighting games communities because I feel we're always going to be like the hyper localized, like very stratified communities. I usually want to do it just because I want to run a Third Strike team tournament, which I don't think is going to be happening anytime soon, honestly. The level of feedback for it has been a lot more rough than I could have imagined. But it's made it so apparent that like the issues that we have as a scene are like, one, basically shared by every single scene out there, and two, could be like kind of solved or at least mitigated if there was like at least some level of communication between schools, right? Because at least for like a collegiate perspective, I feel like if you're participating between multiple schools, that's like that more legitimizes the process of the events that you're running. And also, we're just all these small communities anyways. There's always been like, I don't know, it would be cool to do stuff like that. It would be cool to run team tournaments. It would be cool to run, you know, NYU versus, I don't know, Hunter College or Carnegie Mellon or whatever brackets. That's kind of the direction I've been going towards, trying to focus on building the sub-communities that I care for directly, but also having a framework to allow sub-communities to flourish. And I don't know if that's going to be really something that's going to like pan out in the future, but I guess it doesn't actually matter.
Exactly. Because it's like you have just worked through all that right now, right? And you're like, okay, so that's what I'm doing. This is what I want to do, and it doesn't matter if it works or not. And like by documenting it here, everyone knows now, right? Like you said, it's all about documenting it. For us, that was like really hard back then too, because who was the only person who's going to do that? It was going to be me. What am I also doing? I'm coaching the team. What am I also doing? I'm doing this stuff. So right now you're in a unique spot right now where you have the time and you have the freedom to actually, because actually one of our projects, the reason that video is on the YouTube, one of our projects was to actually create a documentary about the whole thing, about the history, about the process, and about how much like our own community can fuck us over. But it didn't pan out because, shocker, we got fucked over. But like a big part of that is also just, again, it's like spreading yourself thin. So like I said, you know what you want to do now, or at least you've started to put that into your own words, and that's great. Funnily enough, back in my time before Kim took over, we did do stuff like that, and believe it or not, many other schools, maybe not now, but many other schools have an equally fragmented identity, which is also what makes it hard. Like for example, one of our main partners was Cooper Union during the time, and we actually had what it was Play, PGN, and Cooper Union with the invite of sometimes Columbia and other schools that would come through. And it was, we would each have an event, one in Washington Square, one in Brooklyn, one at Cooper Union. And it would be teams from each, like Brooklyn campus, from Manhattan campus, from Cooper Union competing. It was like a tri-school games kind of thing, some fucking Harry Potter bullshit, I don't know. But basically, what you're saying is exactly, we were actually able to do that for a short while. And what my recommendation for that is, don't get discouraged, because right now it's just hard to get a hold of people. It's hard to find out who it is. All you can do is just do what you're doing and grow. And as you grow, people will find you. Like, and when that happens, like, you will be able to do that. And like, you don't have to worry about legitimacy. Like, just simply worry about the self-actualizing of your goals, like the communities being alive and hosting sick events. That's it. Like, that sounds like what you want to do. You want to host sick events that create hype. Because why do you want the other schools? Like, that's hype. Like you said, NYU versus Carnegie Mellon, NYU versus whatever, like, NYU once again showing themselves to be a powerhouse of multiple esports. That would be sick. And it, like, that's what you want to do. And like I said, all you can do is what's right in front of you. Don't worry about if it's not going to work. You just got to full send it and just do whatever you can to make it happen, and just take care of yourself. Like I said, my biggest recommendation for you two is take care of yourselves, okay? I don't want to see more people burn out. Like for Carol, he didn't go super hard on it. You know what I'm saying? He didn't. I know that for a fact. He didn't go super hard when he was with us. That's not a knock. That's just how he handled it. Therefore, he still participates all the time with you guys, right? Like, he still shows up in the Discord and stuff. He didn't burn himself out like somebody who's smart. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just didn't make the mistake because he saw other people burn themselves out. He saw somebody go on medical leave. You know what I mean? Like, he was working through his own stuff too. I've spoken with Carol about that stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but I know he was going through stuff too. So he properly prioritized not burn himself out, and now he can still enjoy it. And that's my biggest recommendation to you, is just don't burn yourselves out. If it's gonna die, it's gonna die. Like, that's it. Somebody else will pick it up and it'll live again. You're already doing good work by putting this kind of stuff together. As you get some other guests, You know, if we come, like, I'm always happy to come back, like, if you have more stuff to talk about, because we didn't even get into a lot of the other history. Like, I don't mind that. I don't mind coming back. You know, you can just ping me, stuff like that, to set up another session. And like for the other people, you know, like Paul, Peter, whatever, Paul is really a big one, I would say. Paul's probably one of the main people I would recommend seeking out if he's still willing to do it, because he's one of the people that really went hard on this stuff as well. You know, same thing, like they're going to have their own perspective on it and their own stuff that they learned from it. And then that is going to be documented here as well. And that's going to prompt you further to say, well, what is it that I care about, you know? And so that's why, like, what you just did just now by saying it's like, well, this is the direction I'm kind of going with it, what you ended with, it's there now, it's here. You can literally just show this VOD now. Like when people ask, like when you say, hey, like, would you like to be part of this play? Hey, like, I'm thinking of you helping out with this stuff. Are you interested? And be like, well, what do I got to do? You just clip that part and you just go, that's what I want. And then it's like, oh, I could do that. Or it's like you clip the part where I just say, just help out whenever, volunteer if you want, but you know, just do something. Like that's all you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Like those are all things that you can just take from this and say, like I said, that video is an hour long, but you could probably reduce it to 15 minutes and just say, like, these are the important aspects, right? But in person, it was a little different to just make sure it was there. I know that I personally am like more verbose than a lot of people because I fear being misconstrued or I fear losing context in what I am presenting, because I often do present things also very emotionally. Like, for example, every time NYU comes up, there's fucking administration, like, screwing us over. And, like, the community screwing us over. But then I further contextualize myself by saying, it's like, well, I still love the community, don't get me wrong. Like, I wouldn't be putting money in this community. I wouldn't have helped this community. I wouldn't have given 4 or 5 years of my life to this community if I didn't love it. I'm just saying that they need to understand their hand in this as well. And so that's why, you know, things end up getting a little long. But yeah, that's what I'll leave you with here, so I don't continue going long. In that, you know, if that is the help that we can give you for this, and this documentation is what helps you, then, you know, again, we're more than glad to do it. And I don't know if Kim has anything to add to what you said before or my take on that scenario.
I mean, honestly, for me, it got a little bit diluted. Mm-hmm. Not exactly sure what I can weigh in on, other than just keep doing what you guys are doing. And I guess I'm open to coming back. I don't know. I'm kidding. I'll come back. I'll come back if it's requested. But yeah.
Yeah, that I'm very thankful that you two could show up and basically guide us with like years of experience on this, because fuck me, I don't know. it feels like there's like a completely new perspective on a lot of the stuff we've been doing for the past while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to provide that. Like I said, thank you also for having us. You know, it's always a pleasure, you know, re-engaging with the community, because when the community is alive, it's just one of the best communities to be in. Like a personal gaming community in higher education where everybody's kind of on the same page about, like, you know, we got this work to do. We're all still trying to just get the good job, or we're trying to work and just do our work, but you know, we love game. This is our passion. This is what we want to do.
All right. I don't want to take any much more of your time.
Yeah,
I don't know if Matt, if you have something to say.
I do have a few things, right? First of all, do you have a better name than PGNterview? I came up with that in like a few seconds, and this name like kind of sucks. I know this is like not as serious of a topic, but help. You guys have any ideas?
I mean, we'll probably get back to you on that. I would say that it really doesn't matter. Like, it can sound as cringe, as stupid as possible, but like I said, just as long as you're doing it, you can just rename it later. Like,
that's true.
And like, also, like, if something is like cringe or whatever, like people are like, have you seen that PGNterview? Sounds so stupid. That's already engagement, right? It's already engagement. So
yeah.
it's really not so. I think like, again, that's like the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. Just do what you can.
I mean, I guess we're kind of wrapping it up, right? So, right?
Yeah, I feel like it was really good. Like I've really enjoyed this entire time, but I feel like I honestly didn't expect it to go almost 3 hours.
I didn't expect it to be like so good either. But okay, before we go, I should say we should do some. You guys want to do your shout outs, your social media shout outs, like link your Twitter or some shit? Yeah, because we always got to do that. Right. So I don't know which one of you two wants to start first. You do like rock, paper, scissors or something.
Ryan can go first.
Okay, sure. So, so everybody,
does that
I
make
have
the right
been
one?
your former president and current streamer. I stream every day. You can follow me on Twitter at Wyldfire NYC, or you can follow me on Twitch at Wyldfire NY. Yeah, unfortunately, those names, the regular Wildfire with none, are taken, which is stupid because they're not active. I've reported them multiple times trying to get my name back, but whatever, it is what it is. Yeah, you can also join our Discord, which you can get by going to either our streams, just doing !Discord. I appreciate you guys having me. I will be around, like I said. I told Kevin to let me know when the next big Tetris tournament is happening, because I got something for that too. So you'll definitely see me around, at least stream monstering for some of the events. And thank you guys for having me. And Kim?
Yeah, you can. So earlier we were kind of talking about whether or not to call me Kim or Binko. My full tag is Binkobon, Binkobon. You can find me under that alias on Twitter and Twitch, where I stream as well. I am a pixel artist, primarily, also dabbling more and more in just regular art. I also play a fair amount of games, as you can probably imagine. Play Tetris 99, which I have a 15% win rate on after Kevin tanked it a whole bunch. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I actually made a new account, so it's untainted. I am.
Wait, seriously?
Wait,
How bad was that resume?
Yeah, so that was like the one that he tanked it on. That was like the shared account that I had with Ryan. So I was like, after that, I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy my own. Make my own profile. I had to buy an entirely new Nintendo Online, but it's all good.
I was just gonna say, if you want that win rate back, you could just ask him to borrow your Switch again, because he's so good now.
Yeah, no, I'm just clowning around. I still think it's like really funny that that's how it shook out. But yeah, I played some Tetris 99. Like I said, I play Epic 7, which is a mobile gacha game, truly the game from hell. But yeah, you can also catch me doing art as well on Twitch. Yeah, you catch me in PGN stream as well. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for having me on.
Yeah, no, that was real. That was so good. I felt like there was nothing for me to really say, ever. And shit, that was just all good. Kong, do we have to do shoutouts too?
I don't know. What would I even shout out? I don't.
Just say,
shout
like,
out,
hey,
shout out to Comet though. Shout out to Kevin actually.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get as soon as I get more info internally about whatever he's going to do, we're gonna hit up the Matcherino with that. Unless WPL wants to do that, that's more power to them.
Hell yeah! I think we're all waiting patiently for the next big Comet event. Also, shit, what was I gonna say? Oh, do you also want to announce the new status of the Discord that you just got last night?
Oh, I mean, it's nothing that special.
That's true.
Yeah, we just
think it's still
opened.
cool.
I mean, we just opened the PGN Discord to be a community server, and it's I checked the analytics, and we're actually really close to being eligible for applying for a partnership with Discord.
Nice. Congratulations.
Good shit.
But we're just a little bit off, but that's fine. Something to work towards. And we technically did reach the analytics for affiliate on this Twitch channel, but well, I mean, the issue is like, well, I have to submit tax information, do I submit my? I don't want to really submit my like personal one for this like account that's gonna be shared and effectively changing all the time. So I might have to hit up the school and be like, is there a process? Has this ever happened before where a club needs to be codified as like a legal entity underneath the school?
Yeah.
And,
Good luck with that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna be a thing that's possible. It might just be I register as my own, and then. Well, first I have to ask Twitch support like how often can you change this? Like, is it okay if it's changing like every year or so?
Yeah, maybe even more frequently if we get like emergency situations like the ones you guys described before. Like that sounds so fucking harrowing. I don't know how you would ever like respond to that, especially in the middle of running a club. It's kind of insane.
Congrats, guys.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's time we wrap this up. This has gone for way longer than I thought it would.
Follow my Twitter. I'm Matthew Robo just about everywhere else. Follow my roommate's Twitter. He's Dr. Evil Brain on just about almost everything else as well. Sometimes he streams fucking Persona 3 FS. Is it
Yo,
FS
dude,
or
I still need to
FS?
finish the answer.
He does
I'm
still
so
need
close.
to finish
I'm so
answer.
close, but I have to
watch
grind.
I can't watch my roommate's stream because I still haven't even finished Persona 3 the question yet.
Dude, you're so far behind. You gotta do it.
I know. I haven't touched a game in fucking ages.
Okay, this guy he has to play on PSP. He has to play on an actual PSP, and it's like,
Yeah.
damn, that sucks.
No, it's great though because Persona 3 Portable is better.
I don't think that's true.
I don't have the Marion Kajin problem that everyone
That game
else
is too
seems to
easy.
have. Dude, I spent so long on this game. I needed to be easy so I could finish it in less than like 10 years, right?
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna beat the answer. Then I'm gonna do New Game Plus, get all the social links on hard, with like the compendium where everything costs 3 times as much before you finish the journey. That's what's gonna happen. And then I'm
damn,
gonna
I
start
feel
Persona 4
so
Golden, and I'm probably gonna get through all of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should end this.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we should.
Yeah, goodbye.